Okay, the October session of the Park Township Planning Commission is now in order. Session. We do have one missing commissioner tonight. Dave Campanella is not with us tonight. He is excused. He let us know ahead of time, so thank you for that. The first item we have on our agenda is the approval of our agenda. Do we have any changes we'd like to make, or if not, the motion to approve? Second. In favor?
Aye.
Aye. I don't think there's anybody opposed, so we'll go with that. Second item is the approval of the minutes from our September 25th Planning Commission regular meeting. Does anybody have any corrections, changes, things that they'd like to make to those?
I have one I found. Page 18. The beginning of the second paragraph. Ed stated that he's torn. I think that should be he stated instead of her stated.
Stated. He stated he is torn.
Next.
Oh, her stated, gotcha, okay. Okay. Any other, Sharon? Okay. Anybody else? I've got a couple. Page 3 would be the second paragraph from the bottom. Second line regulates where it says call earlier on the day that although the state regulates the dune, the township's codes that we just need to get rid of that one. And that's the second line of the second to last paragraph. And then one other. I think this was something I said, so I think I can recall generally what it was. This is the sentence just before the motion that was made on page 24. And the sentence right now is we stated that he was in agreement to make an effort along west and southern to provide a 40-foot buffer. I think the applicant was we stated that he was in agreement with the applicant making the effort along west and southern to provide a 40-foot buffer. The applicant's here, so he agrees with that. So I remember. That's the only change of the change. Any others? If not, we take a motion to accept as amended. So moved.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, excellent. All right, we've got a full agenda tonight as evidenced by our attendance. So thank you for being here. First item we have is public comment. So we have two specific final PUD reviews that are in play tonight that will be following the public comment. For those of you that have public comment, this is an open time for you to be able to speak to that. If you do have comment that are going to be related specifically to those two, which would be Foxglove and Stablewood, if you could hold those to the public hearing, that would help us be able to move through. But anybody that has any other public comments that they'd like to make, now would be your time. So I'll look to the left side first of all. Do we have anyone that would like to make a comment that's not tied to one of those two reviews?
I can hardly hear what you're saying.
That was just about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's very hard to hear you.
A little bit worse than that too, so that's not gonna help. It is on it. Better?
Better.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for letting me know. So if anybody does have comments, left side? Yes, no? Okay. On the right side, anything is again comment not specific to either Foxglove or Stablewood. Okay, in that case, we'll close the public comment. So we have two PUDs before us. The first we're going to talk about tonight is going to be Foxglove. And what I would like to is just kind of talk through, for those of you that may not have participated in a public hearing before, and maybe Mika, you can speak to kind of how they come together, what's done to be able to make folks aware of what is taking place in the case of a PUD.
Sure, it's as far as.
Mhm.
There. All right, very nice, sure.
All right, good.
Sure, so these are both planned unit developments that we have here today. So at the last planning commission meeting, you saw well, maybe it was a couple meetings ago. You had a straight site condominium. So in that case, the primary thing that you were looking for was, does it meet the letter of the zoning district, was required in the zoning district? The PUD, there's a little bit more flexibility. The flexibility is intended so that the developer can do something more interesting and more creative than you can do just using the straight zoning ordinance alone. Incidentally, I went to a great session today at the conference I'm at on PUDs and how to make your PUD work sort of actual way that you want it to. So exciting things to come. But for today, what you're looking for in this is how does this come together and what kinds of relief are they looking for? And then are you seeing the benefit of this kind of development? So you have a little bit more discretion within the PUD. But for the most part, both of these are pretty close to the zoning district that they're in. And I'll go through when we talk about the specific one exactly what that looks like.
Great, thank you. So a public hearing for a PUD does require a formal motion to open that hearing. So I would, at this point, entertain that, if somebody would like to make a motion.
I moved to open the hearing for Foxglove.
Do I have a second?
Support.
All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
Any opposed? All right. I would ask the applicant to provide an overview of the project. And so that those that are here who may have seen some information about it, but might not have all the details of it, have an opportunity to get a better perspective on the project. If we, yeah, maybe turn it so that you get that out of the way. Is that way? We've got copies of it, so it's more important. Residents can see it. Yep.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. My name is Eric DeYoung. I'm a project manager at Naderveld. Naderveld is a civil engineering, surveying and land plan company throughout West Michigan. As I was set up, we are requesting tonight a final PUD and ultimately a recommendation for the board for the approval of the proposed PUD. I want to thank Mika for her work. Report's very thorough, includes essentially all the information that you need. I will try to highlight a few things for everyone's benefit and be able to answer any questions, but I'll try to keep my remarks and introduction brief as possible. As you know, you've evaluated a couple different times now the preliminary PUD that was presented and recommended unanimously for that preliminary PUD to move forward. I'm going to take just a moment to at least give acknowledgement to the planning process. Your team and the township spends a lot of time, energy, and money into creating a master plan for the township. It identifies areas of the township which are suitable for different types of uses. You've done a very thorough job of that. And the subject area here is master plan for this low and medium density residential type development. And Mika's report indicates, a by right plan in this area would support about 33 single family residential lots and units. So the final PUD plan that we're presenting tonight is an attempt to mimic as much as possible the preliminary PUD plan that's been reviewed and approved. This particular configuration, as we've talked about before, utilizes a private road. We looked at several alternatives in previous meetings that was discussed. We talked about land divisions here. We talked about a public road, different configurations here. And we feel that this configuration is a perfect combination of safety, connectivity, and well-designed community interior to the community. Since the last meeting, we did perform a topographical survey. Instead of using just a rough GIS type of reckoning for the property, we've actually had our surveyors go out there. We've located these corners. We've located even individual trees, but certainly any of the utilities and associated site features on the site. Some of the lot corners and the overall size were different than what was indicated on the preliminary PD because we were going off of GIS reckoning. So the overall size is a little bit small. The other thing is we are indicating now our 50-foot right-of-way. The existing right-of-way is 33 feet off the center line. Now we're indicating what the recommendation for the road commission, an additional 17 feet, so we're 50 feet from center line. There is a power that's running here. We indicated that on our plans, if you recall. That power line turned out to be about 7 feet further north than we originally recommended. Now we know where it really is. We did our feedback. So that power line does run along here. There's some implications for these facts. We did need to shift the lots a little bit to the north. North here is page left. So don't get too disoriented. North is page left. So we had to shift these lots a little bit to accommodate that and have sufficient backyard room. Also, there are existing trees dotted here, and those will now live within the right-of-way, the expanded right-of-way. And in addition, there's that consumer's power easement. So for that reason, we can't ensure a tree buffer there. There's no effort to remove any of those trees. They won't be removed, but they will fall under the jurisdiction of the road commission and then consumers as we grant that right-of-way and that easement. The proposed, we could talk a little bit about the PUD process. We are seeking just a couple of small reductions in width and overall area. And the trade-off there is a lot of open space here, providing a buffer to the north and to the east here, and then some amenity area for the project as well. Again, we had to reconfigure things a little, shift the road to be faithful to the preliminary PUD that was proposed. But again, yes, still featuring there's this existing irrigation pond that will remain undisturbed. There's a drain dry retention basin for stormwater management proposed. And of course, the social area internal to the project. It will feature a nice terminating vista as you come in, and it'll be this kind of perpendicular configuration for the roads internal to the project. And we'll switch to a utility plan. We have provided the C300 as the utility plan. I'm going to switch to that in just a second. Utility plan is included. There is a sanitary sewer connection point here in Jerome. The sanitary would proceed northward into Jerome and then out into the rest of the municipal system. Water would be connected at points on Jerome and 32nd, and this is because this looping provides redundancy to the system, enhances the reliability and pressure and the quality of the water system throughout the neighborhood, really. This engineers really look for that kind of connectivity. A storm system is also illustrated, ensuring appropriate drainage to the property. The roads and areas of backyards will be collected and proceed into the retention basin. This ensures channel protection, flood control for the area. Of course, all the storm design would need to be reviewed and approved by the township engineer. But please know that we've put some early attention, at least, into the stormwater design. We're also presenting a landscape plan. The landscape plan, if I'll switch to it. Apologies, I do not have a printed. It's the illustrative site plan here, and I believe you have it in your packet. We are planting over 8 trees, street trees, that meets or exceeds the standards. Thank you. That meets or exceeds the standards as articulated in the ordinance. We do need to remove a few existing trees just east of the existing pond and lots 1 and 2. But wherever feasible, we are maintaining preserving the existing trees. Now, this is existing use is a agricultural field, so it does not have the thickly dense wooded situation that might be present on other projects. But these trees here would be preserved. We do need to take out a few trees here to provide for adequate stormwater management, but you can see all the additional trees that are proposed to be planted here. To the west of the property is Consumers Energy. That we don't have a lot of control over what they do, and of course they zealously maintain their tree clearing work, as you may know. Buffers to the north and to the east, and you know, it's both ways, right? Screening from the neighbors, and the neighbors screen in that fashion as well. So I'm here with applicant Mike Bosgraff. He's I'm sure happy to answer any questions that you might have. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. But the plan mimics the design and the configuration that's been reviewed and approved in the preliminary PUD work. So appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you so much.
All right. So now is the public comment portion of the public hearing. So any of you who are on the left-hand side, your right, our left, that would like to comment on the Fox Love development. Let me give you we'll start with a couple of ground rules just to kind of keep things moving. And this is for commissioners too, and for myself. Stay close to the microphone. Oops, not that close. Public comment, public hearings. We want to try to keep the comments to 3 minutes. Please do sign in when you come up. And of course, let's keep the comments specific to the development and, of course, cordial and not personal, right? So with that, anyone on my left who would like to speak? Oh, you're in the front row, so you get first dibs.
Whatever. My name is Steve Porter. I live on Jerome, and major concern. We've lived on it, cul-de-sac, no major traffic. You know, can this project be built without an access to Jerome? Number one, is there going to be any improvements to our road if we can't stop it, like curbing, sidewalks, because there's nothing there now? The road isn't even really that heavy duty, I don't think. Those are a couple of my questions. And then I just heard, I didn't even think about that, is now you're talking about sewage lines, hookups and stuff like that. My question, can it be built without the access so we have some privacy like we've had for the last 50 years, 60, 70 years, or whatever? That's all I have.
Thank you. Next on the left side. What?
Going back straight, I live on Jerome, actually live right next to where that access is gonna go. Do you have a time frame for when this is going to potentially start?
Capture your questions and we'll give the developer an opportunity to answer those once we have the public comments.
Thank you.
Next on the left side. Yes.
Oh, good evening. I actually live on 32nd Street, right next to where the field that's going to be removed, and have some shared concerns of the privacy we've enjoyed, the infrastructure, gas, electric, utilities, things like that. How can we handle? We've already noticed some issues, just sprinklers kicking on and flooding in the front. We call it, my wife and I, swamp Henderson, because from the regions into it. Probably a bigger concern is the traffic that's going to increase. We live, as you come off Old Orchard, there's a hill and people do not obey the traffic signal. They're currently at 45. There's been numerous times we've been almost rammed driven into our driveway. We've had, just last week, my wife saw a truck with a trailer touring come on the hill, 155, 60, almost ran into a car pulling out of a church across the street, Park Place Church. So I just have a lot of safety concerns from accidents to can we handle it, and utilities, in addition to we've enjoyed privacy and consumers already coming through and taking a lot of our trees out that we have enjoyed both to our side and road front. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Did everybody sign in? I just want to make sure. Please do. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sandy West. I live on Beechwood right off of Jerome. And years ago, when they put in the water sewer in front of our place on Beechwood, I allowed the township easement to have drain water go into our pond. We have a large pond. And actually, the drain that they put in hasn't really, I haven't seen water come out of it, but a few times, just little dribbles. And now that the flower field's gonna be gone, we're gonna have all these houses. I'm wondering about the drainage. Is that gonna be causing a lot more water to come into our pond? Is it going to be filtered? How's that going to affect our lot? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, can you repeat tree addresses?
645 Beechwood.
Okay, next.
Josh Nelson, I live over on Harding Street, been there about 26 years. I also am concerned about through traffic into the community. All those roads there, Jerome, Harding, Elmer, all dead ends. It was purposeful, as in why we all moved in these communities. So having through streets, having raised 6 kids in my community, on my street there. So having through roads is a concern. So can it be done on 32nd only? That's much preferred.
Hi, I'm Kathy Bodica. I live on Drum Street and we've been there over 30 years. I don't know if you guys have any perspective of how small it is. There's 12 houses on the road. We probably have about 20 cars, maybe. You add something this big, they've got to come out and either fix, making the population that much bigger on the road. We have to put efforts into making it work. Because you just can't come in and dump that many cars into an area that's never had that.
Anyone else on this side? Okay. Our right, your left.
My name is Steve Robb. I live with my wife Patty at 1498 Jerome Street. Our house is at the direct end of the cul-de-sac. And in full disclosure, I know Mike Bosgraf. We've been acquainted for some time. I'm familiar with his company. I believe he's really good work, and I'm generally in favor of development. But I shared with Mike earlier, and I'll share with the committee. I too am concerned about the traffic that would be using Jerome Street and Beechwood as a primary access point to South Shore Drive, downtown Holland, and points further north. Jerome Street, as you've heard, lacks curbs, sidewalks, and green space in between curbs and sidewalks. And if you're a pedestrian, the only place to walk is in the street right away on Jerome, Elm, or Beechwood, any of the streets in our neighborhood. So I want to share that with the committee. That's my primary concern.
Thank you.
We kind of share the same concerns. Patty Geisinger, we live at 1498, so that's the Gray Ranch right at the end. And I assume all of you know how narrow that street is, as all of the streets are. They're not through streets. So our children walk in the street to get to the bus stop, which is last year was at Beechwood and Jerome. The neighbors walk for exercise in the street. We have a foster care home on Beechwood that they walk for exercise in the street. So my concern is safety and traffic. Because we walk in the street, there are no sidewalks. So for 32 homes that are going to have sidewalks, and it looks like a beautiful development, why, and I know I'm not supposed to ask questions, but why can it not only be accessed on 32nd? Why did it have to come through Jerome? You know, you've got Elmer, and all of these streets are all dead end streets. None of them are through streets. So we have Virginia Park at the end that we all walk to. We have the Mottman Center, we vote. We have Harrington Elementary. We had, of course, it's gone, but my kids grew up there and walked to school. My youngest son is going to buy a house and raise his family there. So, I mean, we're next to the field. We knew at some point it would be developed, which is fine. We like his developments. But why does it have to go through Jerome? That would be my question. And it's a safety issue. And, you know, we've enjoyed this quiet neighborhood. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else on the right hand side? Yep.
My name is Deborah Chavez. We moved on to Jerome Street 20 years ago because of the peace and quiet. My biggest concern with all this traffic that could possibly go through our neighborhood would have put the safety of the kids in our neighborhood. That's my main concern. And the traffic.
Okay. Would anybody else like to speak?
I have a question.
Sure,
Well, I received a phone call from a neighbor who couldn't be here. Can I
Oh.
mention his comment?
certainly.
His name is Kyle, who lives at 1551 Jerome Street. He's been there 8 years. He and his wife are expecting their first child. The house across the street on Jerome has twins, which you guys know. So all of a sudden, you know, my kids are gone, our kids are gone, but the grandkids are there. So it's wonderful to see the neighborhood come back. But he asked that I speak in behalf of
his address is Jerome, but he's on the corner of Beechwood and Jerome, and they're expecting their first child. So he's very opposed to the entrance on Jerome because not only will he have the traffic on Jerome, but anybody who wants to go to South Shore is going to cut through Jerome and then Beechwood. So it just adds, if there are 32 homes, everyone has, you know, a car or two. So I'll just add his name to the list. And he couldn't be here tonight, but asked me to share his opposition of the Jerome Street entrance. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Do you have anybody else on this side that would like to speak? Anybody else on this side who changed their mind and wants to jump up there?
Can I just say diddle? Say diddle?
Dwayne Bex, just have, what will it do to our property values with these condos next to us? I guess that's one of my main questions as well.
Thank you. All right. Everybody's had a chance to open. Yep, go ahead.
How soon before you guys put this, lock this thing in? Before this is gonna happen, we don't have any say.
That's what tonight's about.
Okay, there's a time frame or anything? When is Bosgrave? Bosgrave obviously has a time frame. What's your best guess?
And I've got all the questions that you've been asking and things that you'd like to learn. I'm gonna bring the developer up now to have that conversation to answer some of those questions.
Okay, time frame is one of them.
Sure.
And what is a legal recourse for us people? Is there any besides getting an attorney or something to at least stop the access from Jerome? Is anything that you guys would recommend there? Because we know you guys are supporting us.
We're here to do our best to support the township. I can't give advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm a volunteer. I can't really give advice on what your.
I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. And do we have any additional questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and since the public hearing is open, I want to bring yes. One more?
Yeah. What about assessment fees that are going to go along with this project? Are there going to be assessment fees to the residents in Park Township?
I think whatever would need to be done would be basically responsibility of the board. That's not something we would address here. We're just so everybody understands.
I just had a question, that's all.
No, it's a great question. Maybe just to provide a little bit of context for everybody. Our role is to evaluate the site plan and the proposal, the development proposal. We do that by having the applicant come in, present to us, have you provide us feedback and input based on what you know about the neighborhood and how you feel about it, which is what you're doing tonight, which we appreciate. Ultimately, what our role will be is to take all that in, deliberate as a commission, and then make a recommendation to the board to either approve or deny. So we don't make a decision on the board's behalf. We make a recommendation to them based on what we know and what we've learned about the project.
Okay, thank you. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I think we've got a few questions and you've probably taken them down as well, so we'll try to address those.
Yeah, I think one of I start, Mike Bosgraf Homes. I'll let the difficult questions go to the engineer. The first couple questions were time frame. Assuming we get approval here, we go to the board, then we have to go back to a bunch of the agencies, produce engineered drawings, which will take 2 to 3 months. Go to Eagle, which will take a significant amount of time. So I think from a time frame as far as construction, we're probably looking at a late fall next year. And then it probably, it's sand, we probably build through the winter and we pave spring of 2027. That's probably the most likely time frame unless things go really smooth and somehow we get it in by the end of next year, but I doubt that. Assessment fees, I think, I don't know if I can answer it any better than you. I know as a developer, we tend to pay for what we end up doing, plus a little bit of how we, so I can't imagine there's assessment fees to anybody else. We're paying for our water and sewer and then we're giving it to the township. There was a mention of condominiums, and again, it's easily confused. Basically in the state of Michigan, as I've explained before, there's subdivisions, and then there's the Condominium Act. This is going through the Condominium Act, but it is not a condominium as you might think of condominiums where people are taking care of your grounds and stuff like this. This is a subdivision. It's a site condominium. Like you see on Jerome Street or anywhere else. People will have the four corners of their site, and the homes we're building are single family detached homes. People can choose their colors, choose their maintenance regiment, everything else. There was a question about access. It is a private street. However, there are sidewalks from Jerome to 32nd Street and throughout the project. So I do think we're providing for walking capabilities within the project. Obviously, we don't have any control over, the bike path on 32nd Street or Jerome Street. You want to address drainage?
Yeah. In the current context, this is an agricultural field. Farmers don't have any specific guidelines for how they are required to handle stormwater or drainage. Right now, a drop of water hits here and it runs where it wants to go. The good news is when you start to look at adding, changing use, doing development, there are specific requirements for how stormwater must be managed. And that's reviewed by the township engineer, and in certain contexts, the Ottawa County Water Resources Commission. So actually, we have an opportunity here to improve the kind of drainage situation that might be present, because no longer will this water just be able to, the general drainage pattern of this property runs in this direction. No longer will the water just be able to rain, be able to fall, and it just rushes however it wants to anymore. In this case, we're going to be adding some impervious surface, but the entire property, there's very complex calculations how the stormwater needs to be captured and then retained in a basin. The standards encourage mostly infiltration wherever we can get it, so we'll start with that. So this water will will proceed this way through the storm, and it will hang out here, right? It will, when it rains hard, the water might, there might be some water present in here, and then it'll infiltrate. And so there is provisions for how that stormwater will now be controlled and handled, actually improving the drainage condition for the property. In addition to that, I'll just touch on traffic a little bit. 32nd is the main thoroughfare. I mean, the traffic pattern is going to be exiting out this way. We looked at Jerome primarily as an opportunity for increased connectivity for emergency access. In both circumstances, it'll increase the connectivity. Both the road commission and general design principles look for enhanced connectivity where you can find it, reducing the amount of cul-de-sacs where possible. As mentioned, we're going to have a sidewalk present in here, so we'll be able to increase actually the pedestrian connectivity to the area. Folks want to come through, join up the path. As Mike mentioned, it is a private road. If you were to look at a more by right public road kind of plan, that might only kind of enhance some of the traffic situation and conflict here. We're creating a perpendicular intersection cloning. It's not as convenient as creating an easy public throughway that might be an alternate option. So the throughway is a traffic calming. It is a private road. This will be signed. It'll be a little bit more of an intimate neighborhood, and not read like, a throughway. So that in combination with the emergency and pedestrian connectivity, we feel like this is still the strongest plan for the area. Thanks.
I guess, the one question that I think at the heart of everybody's comments and feedback, the question was, why does access have to come through Jerome? And I know you looked at a few different options. And I think, and I don't know if it'll be helpful for the conversation to share some of the challenges you had in looking at those, or why you landed on this approach. Sure.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, then I guess that kind of goes back to some design or historical context that we,
Sure.
Maybe it's best if I, everybody can still hear me. So obviously this is Jerome Street. We looked at, if we don't connect here, so we basically came up with, thanks. Two home sites here, and then pulling this back into a cul-de-sac or coming back around to 32nd Street. And the road commission was not a fan of two accesses on 32nd Street. So we kind of pulled back from that. We pulled back from, developing two lots here. And that's kind of how we went away from this design. We came back to this design after the first planning commission meeting. The other alternative we have that we've decided we'd prefer not to exercise is a more traditional street layout, which again, we're trying to go with a community design, which includes, signage in the front, a community theme, some amenity package, some open space. And typically when we're allowed to have it, we'd rather have, more of a community feel. So we'll have landscaping up front, burn barriers, private streets. It'll look like a community. We can alternatively, which we're trying to avoid, a public street, which tends to be a wider street, and Ottawa County Road Commission's regulations on street design is much more stringent than a private road. And what that typically means is any kind of T here is a definite T. And so they would start requiring us to have a wider straight street from 32nd to Jerome without this little calming mechanism here, which we also think is attractive. In addition, I don't think they can allow it, and we didn't look at it, but these are all temporary cul-de-sacs interrupted by consumers' property. So I think we're safe there, but I'm pretty sure Ottawa County is going to encourage us to grid this thing out, which then becomes a straight over grid and just isn't that attractive of a community for us.
For you.
Yeah, that's what to me is.
Yeah.
Yeah, your community going just well, but what about the community that's been there already?
Take away that.
Right. On your own street. And if they were to widen Jerome Street, then we will lose part of our front yards.
Oh.
When this whole area, when plotted out, we all have 55 or 50-foot frontage.
Right.
And 150-foot deep. So it's going to change the appearance of all of our homes on Jerome Street if they decide that they have to widen Jerome Street.
I don't think that's under consideration right now.
Correct.
So,
Well,
just to pull things back. This is typically a public hearing, gives everybody the opportunity to ask the questions, but it's not an FAQ or Q&A session. Okay. We're happy to have, additional questions. We can certainly, you can, I think I've captured everything that was asked. I think one of the reasons that I asked the applicant to share a little bit about the road and the considerations that were made is that there were other approaches that were looked at. There's a lot that, in addition to the access through Jerome over to Jerome, there's a lot of restrictions that the builders have that come from the road commission. We have as a township that are based on the Ottawa County Road Commission. And I just wanted, again, not trying to support one position or another, but to try to give you some perspective as to some of the things that they deal with as well when they're putting the road in, and whether it's going to be private or public and how it's going to be accessed. So, yes.
Is it appropriate to ask at this meeting what the objection was of the Ottawa Road Commission to having two entrances on the 32nd Street?
We can, I think the feedback we got was that it was not desirable from their perspective. I don't know if there's a history there, and Mika, you might be able to speak to that too.
I don't think I talked to them about that design specifically, but they do have driveway spacing requirements and street spacing requirements. I think that's a possibility.
So it would have been possibly, I wasn't in that conversation, just the distance between where those entrances would have to be.
Yeah, especially,
it would have been sufficient.
Right, every interaction that you have, especially with the higher speed roadways, a conflict point with distances and hills and whatnot. They have a lot of different things that they're looking at. That's a guess, though, not just based on past communication.
Mika, is that a document that we can get a hands on eventually?
The Ottawa County Road Commission driveway standards, it is on their website, is that you could look at, but you're talking about some pretty, trying to decipher all of their guidelines.
I'll take a look.
So it'll come from their own internal standards, and then a lot of those standards also come from what's called the Green Book or the AASHTO standards as well. So the Michigan manual, and the AASHTO standards a little bit less publicly available. Those are all the traffic engineering standards that they're pulling these regulations from.
Okay, yeah, I know there's a church right across the street and there's two driveways there too, so that comes into play.
All right. Yes.
I would like to ask the applicant one question as far as if this goes through, homes start being sold in 2026, what's the price range?
You have, we've talked a little bit about this during the preliminaries and how pricing is arrived at, but I think you could probably give some ballparks.
Yeah, probably the easiest way to look at this is we typically start with lot prices and some internal metrics, and lots today tend to run $130,000 to $150,000 a home site, which pushes us probably into that $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 range of homes in here.
Yes.
Did I understand you correctly that this neighborhood requires two entrances? Or you did it that way for the layout of it?
No, we did it that way for the layout. I think if we go towards public streets, they're going to require two outlets.
But this neighborhood, as it's designed, condominium doesn't require two.
Correct.
It doesn't. Now it's a question. Does it require two entrances?
No, I don't believe it does.
That's
No.
what I didn't.
No, if we did, I was intending to say, as if we go to a public street,
Right.
they're going to require two.
Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
So it could get by with just 30 seconds.
And typically we get encouragement from emergency and fire services to provide a second. I don't know if it's a requirement, but it's usually something that's very desirable from their standpoint.
That's another document I would like to see.
Okay. I know that I suspect that everybody's questions will probably not answer to their complete satisfaction, but hopefully it gives everybody a little bit more perspective on the project. I think we've covered most of the questions here. I'm going to go ahead and we do need to close the public hearing so that we can move on to commission deliberation discussions. So I would entertain a motion to close.
So move.
Second.
Support.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? All right. Okay. I have a lot of questions, and I think most of them have come up in the public hearing. So what I would love to do is hear from each of you and kind of get your thoughts. I'm sure you've had a chance to, everybody's had a chance to go through stack that we have here, the plans and questions, comments, thoughts, fire away. I suspect everybody has thoughts. I won't pick on people. Go ahead, get started. Whoever would like to jump in.
Can I start?
Please do.
Just one thing, I actually just did this today to get a perspective on numbers of residences. I counted on Beechwood and on Jerome, 28 on Jerome and 12 on Beechwood. Does that sound reasonable to the audience? And Foxglove has 32. So we are talking about a development that has less homes than Jerome and Beechwood. That was helpful for me to see that scope. The other thing driving around over there today is seeing that the fire station is directly, almost directly at the end of Jerome. So one of my questions is, would the fire chief have an episode if we got rid of the second entrance at the end of Jerome? I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm sure he has an opinion. So from a safety of the community, having access for the fire truck coming down from the end of the road could save some lives. So that's my soapbox. I'm confused. This is for Mike and Eric. The current tree status along 32nd. You said nothing's going to come out, but I'm particularly looking at lot 10, which is the far. Which direction am I going? South, southeast corner. Southwest. Yes. That whole end seems naked along 32nd. There aren't any trees there, right? Or any in the plan?
Correct. We've inventoried the existing trees that live here, and those remain.
Right.
There's 2 trees near the entrance. Those will need to go. After that, we are either in the right of way or we are into the consumer's easement. We could plant some what we call front yard trees within the unit boundary itself. And that can happen within the building process, but it's not technically a street tree because it would live outside not only the right of way, but also the easement for the consumers. So these are present because they're there already, and until they encroach on consumers' property line, they'll remain, or the road commission's got issue with them. But you know, there's no existing trees in this little window by lot 10. So
I just wonder what that does to the lot value in somebody's eyes that's looking to build in there. Because it's
Plant a front yard tree.
It doesn't prohibit us from burning that area and landscaping that area, which would probably be the intent. So if it might be akin to looking at the project we did, Bay Meadows, with that burning area up front. Consumers is going to cry foul if we start planting trees, but we can landscape, we can burn, we can do shrubs, we can do probably ornamental trees. It's just be prepared if consumers come through.
Yeah, okay, well, if there's gonna be burn and landscaping, then fine, I saw the bike path in the lot, and they were, together, correct, okay. Eric said that all the current trees on the property were saved, but as I transition.
So, yeah, we put that.
It's the trees I brought up at the last PUD review. Are they still on there, or?
I don't think we have intentions of taking any trees out. unless we're told we have to take trees out. And we did place them on there and they're
Okay.
outside of, you know, barring, you know, having come in with, I think we talked about, we thought we could pick up the drainage without putting a ditch in there, try to save those trees.
So if you look at the utility plan. Yeah, if you look at the utility plan, there's no easement penciled here. Like we looked at a trailer, have some backyard drains. We have some backyard drains that we need to pick up here and here. But the natural topography here is gonna allow us to preserve like, I think we have, imagine 25 feet there. So all those trees would remain. We just need to take out whatever minimum we didn't need to do within that building envelope, but you know, as many trees as is practical. It doesn't make any, you know, financial or practical sense to take them out if you don't need them. So, yeah, that's why we're proposing that these would remain, and as many as we can keep, we'll keep.
Well, good, you made me happy, man. In Mika's comments that she sent to us, there was, make sure I've got the right PUD here. Just short of the open space requirements that we were trying to figure out. And I go back, well, I also saw a stormwater easement along the south, or along the east side, between 32nd and the current open area. But there's a strip of land east of that easement, between the woods and the easement. Can it be categorized as open land?
Yeah, you're hitting on something that we were talking about. You know, you see the opening here is cut off at this point. We do have some additional, I'll call it extra unit boundary here. At some point, it's going to diminish to a point, basically. And the configuration here would allow us to have a little bit, but basically, you know, this contiguous area represents the kind of the primary green space. So to have a strip here is probably not ideal, because especially we want to encourage circulation along the sidewalks here and keep the contiguous area here for primarily for use. So.
Well, let me ask a question, and I don't know the answer to this. Can a homeowner build a fence across a stormwater easement?
They can.
So that stormwater easement is going to be open.
Correct.
Open area.
Yeah. From
the end of it. There's going to be a path there. You know, whether we plan it or not. So
Sure. Yeah, you know, I think you have a backyard versus street side circulation guidance. Okay. And I think that's probably the primary direction, is to have people circulate in the sidewalk. So
we had this deliberation earlier, well, actually last week probably, when Mika brought this up, and we deliberated about changing the plan that you've already approved or you've seen to basically pick up a little bit of additional open space. And we kind of went back to the PUD aspects of it and said, you know, the spirit of, you know, this was I don't want to say it's a rounding area, but when we got the easement information, you know, it changed that calculation just slightly. We can hit that calculation, but it doesn't, I don't think it gives anybody a better project. And so we intentionally decided to leave it the way it was.
Well, and again, I keep bringing it up, the dog walkers will go back there if it's open. So whether you want to count it as open space or not, that's your decision, but they will be back there. Yeah. And I'm trying to make it so they don't feel bad, like they're breaking some rules or something. Irrigation pond. How is that going to be maintained? Who maintains it? How will it be maintained? Because it's sort of a algae pit right now.
That one, I'm open to suggestion. There's one corner that is designated wetlands.
Right.
So we probably have to stay off the east
Yeah, this corner here, you have a copy of the wetland delineation is within your package. This area here, there is a little pocket of wetland, we cannot impact that without a permit from the state. Yeah.
Which is probably not forthcoming. It doesn't mean the rest of the pond I can't address. Right now, there's a fence around it.
Well, that was my next question. Is the fence going to stay?
Haven't thought of it. Yes.
I hope so. I hope you haven't thought of it.
Yeah.
One side.
Yeah. It's heavily overgrown and I'm assuming damaged, and at some point, you know, we probably ought to get in there and clean it up. I'd be happy to, you know, work with the neighbors on what that should look like. You know, I don't know if you're saying you gotta go back to the fence, we can clean it up, put the fence back. I gotta be.
No, I want to make sure that once it gets cleaned up, it stays cleaned up over time.
Oh,
That's
to answer that question, it is open space and it's the responsibility of the homeowners association. So there is a mechanism there to maintain that.
okay. And my final question is is this a decision you've made? This is a little flyer that was included in your package from stantech.com on a seed mix for your retention pond area. Is that something you've chosen to do, or was just an
Conceptual to give some guidance on the existence of these specialized seed mixes that exist for stormwater detention areas. Happy to receive guidance on alternates. That has not been selected. It's only some conceptual understanding of what it is.
Well, as a commission, we like to work with local developers, and I'd like you to work with local wild area managers, open area managers. So I printed you a couple of links to these conservation services.
Good. Yeah, we'd be happy to receive, our landscape architects would be happy to receive guidance on what plant mixes would be appropriate. Thanks.
Good, thank you. I'm done.
Sure.
As I read through the documents, I've jotted down a few notes within and as well as written manually on my papers here. With regard to seeing this previously and it all being preliminary, I do have a couple questions probably for staff and our board first. Because I see things have shrunk. And I don't know if the numbers we've got in our packet now reflect anything new or updated, but I'll start with the parcel size. And they proposed 11,000 square feet, and we're talking R3. And the standard for that is 15,000. So my question to my board members here is, why do we continually give less when we should be expecting the minimum?
Can I put that in the context of the PUD, or if you wanted to say more,
I'm good with that one right now, yeah.
So that's part of that flexibility of the PUD. And so our PUD ordinance is written so that there's flexibility in the size and the configuration of the lot, like the width and the overall size. But what it doesn't allow is to exceed the underlying density of that parcel. So because this is in an R3 zoning district, you can't put more houses on here than would be permitted in the R3 zoning district. So that's the maximum number. What the PUD does is it says you can take that same number of houses and then you can make the lots a different size or a shape to give some other benefit. So in this case, an open space benefit or the community building benefit and those things. So that's where that flexibility to kind of give and take comes in with the PUD.
So that sets us up a little bit for some failure in the future, because time and again, when I watch ZBA and I hear what comes before them, bottom line for requests on for easements and such, it's always, well, you allowed XYZ to do it, how come I can't do it as well?
This is a totally different category. So anything that's in a PUD, and this is something that people don't necessarily like when they find out that they're in a PUD, anything that's in a PUD is not able to go to the ZBA. So this is like a special contract.
Because I notice on the chart that is on page 7, everything is reduced. Parcel width, front setback, side setback, rear setback. It's postage stamp size lots again with huge houses. I lost my notes, my track here. Hold on. Along with shrinking everything and the number of safety concerns our residents have brought up, I did notice, and they did not comment, that a sidewalk has been removed, so there is no sidewalk along the entire along the entire west side to their cul-de-sac, whereas the previous plans showed that.
Was that? I did have a note about that for discussion, was that was something to take a look at, but
It's on my map in front of me.
it's on your own.
Mm-hmm.
I can address that. That is an oversight by our design team. We produced a new rendering. All these lots got adjusted and reshaped. That sidewalk to the north appeared on the original plans, and I don't want to speak for Mike, but there was no intention of removing that. We always imagined sidewalk on one side throughout the totality of the project. Apologize for that oversight. Happy to receive that as a condition.
Good catch.
Thank you. First, the buildable parcel size reduction as well, that doesn't eliminate the numbers in your calculations. Going from 14.18 acres down to from 15.2.
It doesn't reduce the buildable amount, the buildable numbers. No, I don't have that in front of me, but I think I ran that one again. I can double check again quickly just to make sure, but I think that I ran that again as well.
Okay. And then there's a note within the standards. It's either the second or third. I can't tell how these are running together. That the board, following the planning commission requirements, may require a portion of the dedicated open space to abut the body of water. If you can explain to me how that affects this development. So it's on page 6 within the chart of standards dedicated to open space. So second box down on 6.
So the only way that I saw that applying to this is that irrigation pond, that's the only body of water that's on this.
Right.
And it is in the open space area. So
within my written notes, hold on, let me see. We're going to talk tree preservation again. You've got a section here again at the bottom of page 6. Are we still considering if the existing homes on Jerome are adequately shielded? Has that been?
that's a plan.
That has not come up for discussion yet, so it's going to. I think we're talking about shielded from a tree perspective. Whether the plant has adequate tree line or whatever we felt, whether it was tall shrubs, tree lines, things that would provide maybe some quiet and some shielding for the neighborhood. as opposed to having it open.
Correct. So, Commissioner Bergen is our expert on this. And I don't want to necessarily pin this on you, but perhaps if you can, and I know you've walked the property at least 3 times now. Is there anything that you can possibly add to that, or should we not be having this conversation at this time while we're each going around the table?
Well, the homes that we brought up the last time that need to be shielded are, the Bexfords. And I think the people that are here sitting in the audience and,
Into the cul-de-sac.
and, on lot 1 has a heavy, tree coverage on the north and on the west side. But the planting new trees, looks like evergreens and some street trees along the Jerome Street entrance road on the east side of the Bexford's home. So that is your proposal for buffering that house, correct?
Yeah, it's probably easiest to be shown. On the engineering plan, you'll see that there is a tree buffer here, that's a preservation buffer, so.
Yep.
We're proposing not to touch this area here, which leaves this area here, which currently has no trees. And so we're bringing in a series of trees and shrubs and whatnot through here. And then it's the same for this area here. There isn't a tree or buffer zone there. We're adding trees, throughout here. This gets kind of scraggly in through here that I would suggest we're probably keeping what we can there and then adding the trees there.
So in my opinion, yes, they have addressed the tree buffer along the Jerome question.
Thank you very much for that. My written notes, here we go, talking about water again, so I'm glad there was some discussion on that. This is more of a sidebar for the township. I don't know what was involved with the easement that was allowed by our resident, but I do believe that needs to be looked at again because I don't believe our residents need to bear the burden of their own ponds, maintaining them and being a benefit to the township. I think it should be vice versa. So I know you jotted down, Mika, her address, if we can look into what happened with that and possibly take that away. It's not really part of,
Separate, probably a separate conversation.
okay. And that is what I have at this time. I may get more. Thank you.
Thanks, sure.
I'm a little torn on this, to be honest with you. When I hear the residents on Jerome, and I appreciate each of you coming up tonight and expressing your concerns. And if I lived on that street, I would probably be concerned as well. So I understand the safety component. But then I also look at the development, and I've seen this several times and approved it. The thing that I start to wonder that, and I know that the second exit for safety is something that's really important, but can something be done on the layout, keeping it pretty similar to what you have, but less emphasis on that? If I'm a resident and lived in there, to me, the way it's configured now, it's just like, oh, I can go left or right. I can go either way. And so I guess what I would ask is
keeping the Jerome and the 32nd, is there something in that last configuration around there that can really be, it's almost like, oh, that's a secondary, but it's not really the primary. And I just think from a design perspective that maybe a little bit enhancement of the layout could help that and still keep and encourage the traffic to go out on 32nd rather than through Jerome. So the way it's laid out now, I don't, as a resident there, I would probably pick either one. So I think I would propose another look at the layout to minimize the exiting of traffic into Jerome. That's my perspective right now.
Harder to add new things as you go down the list. But I want to start just in general, tree preservation. A comment. I appreciate the effort and the thought that we put into it and our ordinance. I have been driving through the local area further north in a development that's going up in Holland Township, also in something that is currently farm field. And an adjacent development that's also relatively new was also in a farm field previously. And they are not as strict or stringent when it comes to the tree requirements. And it does make a significant difference, even as someone just driving through. So I wanted to just bring that back because it was very noticeable to me. And I know we have this, particular PUD in front of us that happens to be generally, in open field. Obviously, we have the trees at the edges. But just highlight, while I'm sure sometimes it's very painful for the developers to have us continue to circle back to the trees, say, paying more attention now while in the slightly larger but still local area. There really is a big benefit, and it is something that does, set Park Township apart from other areas, and certainly is something that I think is a true benefit to all of us as Park Township residents. So I just wanted to call that out as something that I think, obviously, we have opportunities to try to make it a little more user friendly and easier for us to apply in general. But I think what we're doing, and even with the landscape plan to include, additional trees to what was an open field, is also a definite benefit overall. So I did want to call that out, just as an observation. I will agree. I'm also torn on the entrance to Jerome. I think when we first saw the plan, I provided my opinion that I would prefer that it wasn't there. If I were either a prospective, buyer in the new development or in the current. But that being said, the Virginia Park Fire Station is right there. And I could absolutely appreciate that if there was an actual emergency, when seconds and minutes do matter, that it would make sense to have that available. So there's definitely not a clear cut black and white answer, because there are certainly pros and cons, that have to be weighed in totality with the design, and, increased development overall. So it is something that does require a lot of careful consideration. I do think that, there has been thought put into it. It is a private drive. It has been, designed to minimize the attractiveness for any motorist in the area to use that as a regular thoroughfare. I think there's obviously going to be an increase in traffic with increased development in the area. But I also don't think that, it's going to be likely the first choice, because it is also going to be a community. And what is being designed, while it has sidewalks, is still designed to be a walkable, enjoyable community for everyone. And I do think, again, trade-offs overall, having sidewalks that do connect then from Jerome out to 32nd, out to bike paths. There is increased connectivity in ways that may also be beneficial, right? So just calling out in general, again, I don't believe that this is completely black and white. I think there, again, are trade-offs, pros and cons that can be weighed overall. But I'll stand by my original comment. My preference still would have been to keep them separate. But again, I do absolutely see that there is, you know, a benefit. And obviously, we've heard from the residents on Jerome about their overarching safety concerns, and I do think that those are valid.
Thank you. Yes, there's one drawback to being last, and that is all the good comments are already taken, all the good. I think Commissioner Urban, it really brought it home to me in terms of the relative size of these communities. And the fact that it's not really appeared to be a major influx of traffic, given the composition of the existing neighborhoods, both on Jerome and Beechwood and Fox. I also feel that Commissioner Trailer really outlined the key aspects of what we're considering tonight. And finally, I really believe 32nd Street is the major artery for traffic in and out of this development. So I don't believe the added use of Jerome is going to be that impactful. So I'm pleased with what I've seen. All right, thank you. Well, I have one vote, just like everybody here, and I'm also torn. I've lived in 3 neighborhoods without sidewalks, and when I was raising young kids, I respect everybody's concerns, and I can understand why the concern would be with the potential for increased traffic. I think, and it is a balancing act. I certainly understand everybody who's lived in this neighborhood and has not had to worry about this in the past. I do think just having gone over and looked at the property on a number of occasions, I know that if I was, and I live on the north side, but I came around off of 32nd, and I know that had there been an entrance there, I would not have gone all the way around to Jerome to look at the property, which is what I was doing and walking it when I was there. I do think that traffic is going to be somewhat limited. I respect the concern that folks heading downtown could choose to use that road. And I'm going to ask a question, and Mika, I don't know if you have an answer, and if you don't, I'm certainly not going to hold you to it, but I'm interested. As I mentioned earlier, our role is to evaluate all of your input, the developer's plan, and make a recommendation to the board. So there is another step in the process. But if there was, and I also know there's not a desire to expand the road because that could potentially take over some portion of a front yard. And I understand that. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just going to ask the question. If there was a desire by neighbors to request some type of improvement to that road with the road commission, what's the process for that? Do you know what it is? And if you don't, I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm just interested in asking that question.
I'm not sure what the process is as far as going directly to the road commission to request that. I was leery of it because as I look at it, it looks like I was just looking at a GIS. There's 66 feet of right of way, which is pretty standard. And there's about 20 feet of paved road width. That's well under the standard that they would build to now. Most new subdivisions are at least 36 feet, and so my concern would be that if it was brought to their, they said, hey, we wanted improvements, it would end up widening the road. I don't know for sure that would happen. Can have conversations like that. I don't know if the road commission would be the place to go for that. There's discussion of sidewalks too. That's not something that we can require the developer. That would be off-site, to go all the way down that street, right in front of the development side, but that's kind of not a little bit of the point here. That would probably be either township or something that the neighborhood would pay for, special assessment. But that's not a process that we've done since I've been here, so that's something that I think is conceptually possible, but there would have to be more conversation about it to know how to approach it.
Okay, thanks. And that would also involve the right of way though, right?
It would be in the right of way, so we would have to get permission from the road commission. They're typically relatively open to us paying for things that meets their standards. But not always.
Surprising, yeah. Okay, thank you. And again, not holding you to the answer, I was just based on, I think, the concerns and.
Can I ask a question?
What to ask?
Everybody keeps.
Oh, I'm sorry. Nico, why don't you introduce yourself?
No, I don't care about her name. Who is she? Why are you
Yes.
referring to her for roads and stuff?
She's the community development manager for Park Township.
Okay, she doesn't work for the county.
No, she doesn't. She works for the township. She's staff here for township.
Okay.
But she interacts with all these bodies outside of Park Township a lot more than
She
we.
seems to know a lot about curbing and street size. That's what I was asking.
Sure.
We rely on Mika for a lot of her brain power.
A lot of expertise.
Appreciate it, yeah.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
Correct, gentlemen, said that they could do a larger road through there, maybe less properties. They do that, sell properties for $1 million a piece instead of 800,000. It's a joke. Because it's getting
Tongue in cheek, I got it, yeah. Sure. We're kind of past this, but go ahead. I think it's valuable.
And is the board aware that it was approximately 2 years ago?
You want to step up the microphone?
We're hear you. It's okay, go ahead. We've closed the public hearing, but I'm happy to take the question.
About 2 years ago, a young boy, about 12 years old, was struck on Jerome and Grove by a car moving through the neighborhood. So I'd like the board to be aware of that. 18 years ago, my daughter was almost struck by a vehicle. We live on Harding. There was a little dirt road that came through there, and vehicles use it as a pass-through. So safety, we talk about the firemen being able to get to the scene. Access to Jerome will cause
Yeah.
the
And
need
that-
for it.
right.
And it won't be a fire.
And that was without the additional traffic that you're concerned.
Correct.
Understood.
Mr. Chair, can I elaborate a little also?
Certainly.
So with regard to Mika's description of that very old narrow road, and I don't think that the fire department, and then again, Chief Gamby would have to state this true or false. I don't think that that road is going to be an access point for a fire truck or an ambulance to zoom down in order to get into a new development. They will in fact take 160th to 20 or 32nd. Yes, thank you for that. Because it is going to be absolutely more dangerous for a rescue vehicle to go down Jerome to get access. So with that, I would like that access point re-examined, and I'd like input from the chief.
We can get that input from the chief. So one thing to note with the different access points, if you have access to a roadway, you're entitled to access to that roadway. So the question is, this is a PUD, and so then you're looking at that balancing from the PUD when it comes to the public benefit. So if this were just a standard run-of-the-mill subdivision, these were originally platted out with the intention of being through streets. They've been quiet for many years, and change is a difficult thing. But when you do have that access to this, you are entitled to use that road frontage.
Entitled or can choose to?
Well, I mean, now we're getting into lawyer.
Okay.
So, yeah.
We're not attorneys. We would not try to be one either. this case. So,
Can I ask a question? The fire station, is that being 24/7?
No.
Because I'm wondering about this notion of response time, that if seconds and minutes and if those matter. Well, that's true, if that station is being 24/7, 7 days a week, if it's not, I'm not sure the degree to which that argument holds for.
thank you.
It's volunteer.
Thank you for your comments. I appreciate those.
Can we have one more comment? Can we ask one more question?
Sure.
I'm just wondering, I guess the question is addressed to Mr. Vasquez. When all the construction is going on, will your vehicles and trucks and everything be using Jerome or 32nd? Will that be also, and if they are, and if there's damages incurred, whose responsibility is that? I don't know if that's an odd question.
Road damages?
Yeah.
It's some heavy equipment.
I think that we can, that's the question of road damage is one that the road commission.
Road commission would handle. I think.
I don't think we need to look at that.
No, I think the first part of the question was, which would you expect you would be using for access to the space? I mean, I would think it would be 32nd Street, but I'm not gonna put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I don't think there's any practical reason that we're using Jerome to get to the project. You know, I think in all fairness, you know, there's access here for emergency access and connectivity. There's traffic going both ways. And so Jerome most likely is exiting through our project. I think there's a better chance that more traffic is coming our way than going their way. 32nd is much more of a thoroughfare than winding your way through through the streets to get to South Shore Drive and then going down South Shore Drive. So there's always crossover, but I think we're losing the argument or that, this is all going one way.
Okay, thanks. All right, we have the public comment closed. Any other commentary, feedback, thoughts from the commission? Well, we've heard a lot of input, a lot of feedback. Thank you for providing that. It's an important part of what we try to do as best we can. We have a responsibility to either recommend approval to the board, recommend denial to the board. And of course, the board will do what they choose to do regardless of what we recommend, but that's our job as a planning commission, is to make that recommendation. I don't know, I don't believe we have the option of tabling. It's either approval or denial, correct?
I think unless there were some changes that really needed to happen, but yeah, I think it's typically approval or denial. There was in your packet this draft. And so this is a draft. If you decide to go forward with the recommendation of approval in particular, that's kind of what it's ready for. That's kind of the progression. However, if you recommend denial, if you don't need this, you're just saying we recommend denial. And I would say typically in that case, you would want to be doing more work. They might want to come back with another proposal,
right,
or something along those lines. I wanted to, can I go through a couple of the things that are in this? So this is intended to be really, this is the formal version of what was in your memo. So the memo kind of lays out all the background, and this is intended as kind of the conclusion document, but take a close look at it, just to make sure I tried to capture everything, but there are a lot of moving parts. So I wanted to point out just a couple of things that were just notable. So one of the items, and I also found a typo on this, one of the items is on pages 8 and 9, and it said general compliance with the zoning ordinance. So what that specifically says is that everything in here needs to generally comply with the zoning ordinance, except for the areas where that's called out specifically to not need to comply with the zoning ordinance. For the broader district because you're creating a new regulation for this district because it's the key. And so that was specifically with regard to the setbacks and the minimum lot area. So that was a 25-foot setback for the front yard, 30 for the rear yard, and 7 for side yard, as reflected in the site plan. Minimum lot area 11,000 square feet, and this is where the typo is, which is the minimum lot width shall be 85 feet as opposed to 90 feet. So that's that 5-foot reduction. Another thing that we haven't talked about and that I did not include here, you included it in the memo. It was a last minute juggle, was the question of height. So there will be some slight grade changes. I don't know that you're planning to do a great deal of grading on the site, right? You've got this can be relatively flat. But our zoning ordinance requires that structures are built from the 2018 contour. So the height of a building, if you come in and you add a fill and then you build a building on top of it, you're not measuring from the dirt that you put in, you're measuring from where the dirt was in 2018. That's how our zoning ordinance is written. So the request then, this would be the other item that would be included here if you approved it, would be that measurement is from the new construction height. Would be that would be the request for that as well. So you can discuss that further because we haven't mentioned that before, but that would be included in the section here. And then let's see, the tree preservation buffer, just to take a look at that. It's noted on the site plan where that is, so there's nothing different here. This just calls it out location wise, like north and northwest, where that is located. And then there were a couple other notes. Trees must remain 2 additional planted as indicated on the site plan. Buffer requirement waived from much of the south side as well as the east side, because the existing easements and utilities there. And then there was a couple of comments about protecting the root structures in those areas during construction. And the tree removal would be permitted only if the tree is diseased or threat to human health and safety. And that would require permission of the zoning administrator, who may require an arborist report to determine the health of the tree. So that's our current practice right now. It's alluded to in the tree preservation ordinance, but in the areas where we already have tree preservation districts, that's kind of the practice. So that kind of just get that in there as a condition, clearly. So I think that was all. Oh, and then additional condition that we had discussed was that north sidewalk being added as well. So if there's anything else, then by all means, that's all I have.
I'd just like to say one more thing, that this whole thing is a safety issue, seems to be almost manufactured by odds rather than people up here. That's just my opinion and some of the other.
Thank you. So I guess can we make I'm not saying we're going to do this as a week two vote, but if we decided to approve this, could it be with amendments or would it have to be as presented?
As far as the resolutionary report goes?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can approve it with amendments. Yeah, right, so, and then if that kind of depends on how significant your amendments are. So if you're looking at just some minor changes, then that's an easy one to just incorporate, feel pretty good about sending that to the board with those incorporated. If it's more significant, then you might want to see it again to review those changes to say, is this actually what we intended?
Well, at this point, we have a couple of options, but we do need to make a decision and take direction on this. I'm gonna just, because I think there's differing opinions here, we've all provided some context. I'm going to ask for kind of a directional decision from each of you. We'll need to put this to a vote, but I think before we do that, I'd like to understand where everybody is on this. So, Dan, you can start.
Well, I'm going to be a yes going forward approving it. I'm a strong proponent of connectivity and a realist. The development is going to happen, and we want to combine our communities, not wall them off from each other. So I'll be a yes.
Thank you. Sure.
Commissioner Bourbon, I really appreciate that comment in combining our communities and making them flow. I don't have enough information. I'm an engineer. I'm a data person. I'm a high data person. I don't necessarily think that the opening to Jerome Street is a must. And therefore I would be no until I see something different.
Thank you.
This is actually, I really like the development. We've seen a lot of different things from you, and I really like this one a lot. And I made that comment last time. And it's not the straight streets, and it just has a nice community feel to it. So that part I like, but I'm an architect. And the thing I see 6 lots on, my goal would be you have 6 houses along that last stretch. And the thing is, the more houses you put along that stretch, that means those people are most likely to go through Jerome. I see that there could be some slight, and even where you have your community, if some of that stuff shifted over, and if you concentrated more of the houses, and you may have to change your road a little bit. So I think you could keep the feel of the community, you could minimize your exits onto Jerome, and I think that with some planning, you could make some nice improvements that would be a win for everybody. So at this point, my answer is no, because I think there are some improvements.
Thank you.
I think I said a lot of it earlier. My preference from the first view was to have them be separate. I acknowledge, and I do, I love the comment and I love the spirit of the connectivity. But thinking about the developments overall, that was my preference. And so I'm still leaning with no for the access to Jerome. Staying consistent with my assessment of what I saw all the way through.
All right. Thanks, Deb. Dennis.
My perspective is more technical, more business related. And that is, I'm not an architect. I'm not about to propose changing something that I don't have knowledge about. Given the parameters that the developer was held to, I think he has met those requirements as best as he can. Therefore, I would be a yes towards proposing it to the board.
I, at this point, understanding and certainly taking in all the feedback we've gotten, I believe that the connectivity piece is important. One of the things that we try to do, and this is difficult in Park Township because we don't have a natural town center. But what we try to do is when we look at developments, potential developments, is we look at areas where we can try to build community by bringing connectivity together. I'm also concerned at the same time about the access on Jerome. I would say at this point, I'm looking at this and I know that it's difficult because either way I vote, I don't think we're going to have a quorum. I would vote yes on this. but it's gonna split us right down the middle. So what we're gonna do, I would entertain a motion, because we do need to vote on this. And let's kind of see where the vote goes. Let's do I have somebody?
Can I put you out of your misery?
Please. Any ideas you've got? Yeah,
Well, you have a yes or a no vote.
yeah.
I have the ability to table it. I would suggest I table it. However, I think we need a little bit more direction, because this is now the third time we've been up here.
Yep.
And much of the direction we've taken is with your input.
Fair.
So I think it's fair that what gets us to approval next time. And, as we had multiple conversations about connectivity, and there is a lot of pressure from the fire chief, road commissions, whatnot, for that connectivity. And it's not necessarily our pressure. So if we're going to remove the entranceway, we probably need some protection and flexibility, coming back our way to bring that design back without the connection, without getting beat over the head by the fire chief or anybody else. Is that a fair statement?
I think it is, and I think if, in fairness, I think we need to define, and I think it's been clearly defined, but I'm going to state it. I think the barrier for everyone, and I don't typically like to speak for the entire commission, but I think it is clearly the access to Jerome. So if we're going to table this, which I would be in favor of, do we need a vote to table?
Can you hang on a minute?
Sure, go ahead.
Before I agree,
Sure.
whatever.
My apologies, would you mind using my?
Yeah.
I got to think about what we were running into before that is going to prohibit us from taking out that entranceway. So we have 32 or so home sites, which fits ordinance and typically fits a private street. I'm asking the questions, really. Typically fits a private ordinance requirement. So I should be able to have one entranceway with 32 home sites.
Fire code is 30.
30. Well, no, you're right. And so we would have to go back to bringing 2 home sites with driveways to Jerome Street.
Yeah, that would be a hard sell with the road commission. Well, typically when we have a private road, we don't allow any entrances onto a road other than the private road.
Well, this is Jerome is a public street.
Jerome is a public street.
So I could.
Private development, particularly if you've got a new parcel that's fronting on private road. And that's not something.
That goes back to our conversation we had earlier about not being deceptive and saying, okay, I can come in next week and have 2 splits onto Jerome Street and then have an entirely separate community.
Yeah, in the dialogues of the previous meetings, it was, hey, this probably makes some sense for connectivity, not to just take the 2 by right land divisions, but let's look at something that makes some sense as far as throughways, but they can look at.
And then the next thing is, emergency access. If I'm regulated into a large gravel emergency access that impacts everything, half the people here are stating that there's no need for emergency access. I'd kind of like to be on the record that the planning commission feels there's no need for emergency access.
I don't know if that is a correct statement. I think it is. I want to see, I'm speaking for myself. I can't speak for everybody else. I want to hear it with my own ears and see it with my own eyes documented, whether it is from our fire chief or whether it is from the road commission, that this is their opinion.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, if I may.
Yeah.
I would second it, right? If there is officially, so what we're saying, and as I currently understand it, is that it's not a official requirement. If that were different, then I have no objection. Right, like, if I'm looking at standards, I'm seeing that we're meeting the standards, and this is one of the areas that is specific to the PUD. And it is my understanding today is that it is not required, and that's driving, obviously, if we're talking for safety reasons, that it is a requirement, it's a requirement.
So the two, I don't know all the numbers, but a couple of guys up here do know the numbers, and so at 30, it sounds like that's where that becomes a requirement, as opposed to the fire chief's always gonna want it. I mean, I'll let him speak for himself, but he will tell you over and over again that every second makes a difference when you're responding to a cardiac arrest.
Yeah. And I'll say, reiterate my comments from earlier. I absolutely think that's important, but my preference was different, right? And it's a preference. But again, from a requirement perspective, totally changes.
I think if it's a requirement, we have to be aligned with what the requirements are. So I think that's.
We're 99% sure International Fire Code is at 30.
Is it 30?
I'm 100% sure.
100%.
So it's going to be 30. The fire chief is always going to push. But it's like, it's kind of like, it's like, we'd be better off putting the street in if we're looking for access.
So one of the pieces of this is that the fire chief also has a certain amount of discretion to say, hey, my fire chief judgment says you need X, Y, or Z. So if there's specific questions about this access, that would be something to discuss with him specifically. I mean, he's seen these plans, but I don't know that we talked about.
Okay. So it sounds like the desired outcome for tonight would be to table this and get feedback from the fire chief to confirm that this is a requirement that needs to be met. And it sounds like it is based on the expertise here, but I think based on discretion that the fire chief may have, I think it's probably worth a conversation. Agreement?
And I would just like to add from the fire chief's perspective, if they do does that secondary access need to be a width of a normal residential street. So the thing is, you can still have secondary access, and it could be called just emergency exit only, emergency access. So you still have it, but it's not the primary road. So that just confirmation from him on that would be really helpful.
Okay.
I'm going to make a suggestion that we just table it.
Okay. I'm with you.
We'll let you get on to your next thing.
All right. Do we need a vote to table?
Let's say yes to be safe.
Let's say yes to be safe. Okay, I would entertain a motion to table this. Pending input from fire chief and clarification as to the requirement.
Did I hear you say earlier that we're not allowed to table it? He can. We can, okay, thank you.
So
I'll make a motion to tabling the hearing or tabling. We're gonna table this item pending feedback from fire chief on the requirements for the secondary access.
No, sir. Right. All in favor? Aye.
folks, we're still in session. Thank you.
I have the White House with the.
All in favor? Aye.
That's a, support plan.
Yeah, any opposed? Okay. Consider table, thank you. We're gonna take a break, recess. I think we need a motion to recess. I'll second. In favor? In favor of recess, folks? Go sidebars, please. In favor of recess. Okay, yes.
Well, that's. Yeah, there's a hill. That's on it, yeah, that's why. That's why they wanted to know. Well, they might have to cut down 2 houses out of there. Well, they could. Yeah. 3 to 5.
Yeah.
Those 2 houses.
But it's not anything of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now. And you.
Yeah, it's whatever else here. So we're actually next to the property here. Right. No, I gotta make sure. Yeah, that's. Yeah.
And you.
Then you're, yep.
You guys.
Yep, yeah. And my neighbor, so the corner there was, told me that my neighbor be right next to me. Yeah. 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 Yep. North of that. And it was through the woods. Well, yeah, yeah, probably just go.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, yep. Actually, make money here. Yeah. Yep. You know, they don't you get a food restaurant right there. Yes. Yep. I haven't been able to get to it yet, so.
Because she said she's interested.
Your meeting, Ronnie.
Right.
Full speed, I've seen it. Just don't see the sun. You need a light there, it'll help us flow.
Better.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I don't have that noise. I don't know what. There's not. One for two word. Very sad, great similar. So try to work some of your. So you're moving from. Yeah. Just wait on this. You start to see that it is. That's the bullets that have been done. You can see what you can say.
Yeah, and one of those. So especially if they live. So you could get some. So it looks like maybe in front. Yes, if it looks like there's. Here. You just get.
It's not discussion.
This is maybe it is this. I was thinking of three axes.
Well, that one was one.
Okay, we are back in session. The next item on our agenda is the public hearing for the Stablewood final PUD review. And if you would, Mika, do a quick setup for us and we'll open the public hearing.
So this is a condominium development. That's located on the west side of 144th Avenue. 81 units, 80 of those are condominiums and one is the site condominium, also includes 2 ponds, and a private road trail as well.
Very good. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. Do I have a motion? Motion to open the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, public hearing is open. would you like to present for us, gentlemen?
Good evening, Chuck Hoyt with Nader Veld. I'm here with Tom Witteveen from Bauman Building. They are the developer of the project. So we are here to talk about Stablewood to request a final PUD approval from this commission. So this property, if you recall, was rezoned earlier this year to R5, which of course is the highest density within Park Township, the highest density allowed. And doing our calculations, and it's noted on your plan set, that gets to roughly 10 units per acre allowable by right, which equates to 169 units by right allowed on this site. As discussed during the previous application, the PUD is calculated by doing that by right plan. The PUD density takes that by right plan, but then allows for the same amount of units to be developed with some relief to the sort of strict dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance. As a reminder, 81 units are proposed for this site, which is less than half of what the by right allowed units are on the site. And we covered that last time. We talked of kind of some of the reasons why this number of units is a good fit for this site, and we don't approach that full number of 169 units that's allowed. So all those dimensional standards that I mentioned were met. The reason for going to the PUD is for private road. Private road, as even discussed during the previous application as well, has some advantages to it, and it can create a better designed site, which is things that we talked about last time. One caveat that I'll say, and we'll cover it in a little bit, is the one dimensional standard that we do need relief from in this application is the building height standard that we'll talk about in a little bit of detail in a bit, but I promise I'm not going to keep you here till midnight. So, at our preliminary PUD application discussion with the Planning Commission, we received positive feedback. We shared the reasons behind our designs, and we discussed, buffers and tree preservation in great detail. We talked walkability, we talked connectivity. We even got Tom to quote pricing for what we think that houses will be, which he doesn't have to do, but he was nice enough to do that. So thank you. In response to the comments that we heard at that last meeting, there were several design changes that you'll see on the site. So we added the path around the pond. That was something specific that we heard from the commission. We added the picnic area for a little bit of recreation for the residents of the neighborhood. And then, of course, we swapped out the sycamore trees that were along the sidewalk because we know that those can cause some issues. So those have been swapped out now as well. So there's a few things that's in the Community Development Director's report that I want to talk to specifically, just to kind of address them right out of the gate. Hopefully this answers your question, but certainly we'll be here to answer questions from the commission as we go. So again, the sidewalk, which is now shown on the plan, this is the other kind of site plan change that you'll notice, the fairly significant one that you'll see. There have always been sidewalks throughout the site. That hasn't changed. However, there's a sidewalk now shown going from the north entrance to the south entrance, and it traverses across two private properties in front of those two private properties and connects the two streets. But not only does it cross in front of those properties, what I do want to point out is that it crosses a county drain. Okay? And so this is what I want you to be sure to understand is putting in a sidewalk on a flat piece of property, just straight across is one thing. This case is quite different. There's a significant ditch, and we have some imagery that we can show in a bit if it helps me to explain what it is. But if I can just describe it, there's a fairly large ditch because it's the county drain, right? So anytime you're going to make that crossing of the county drain, you need approval from the Water Resource Commissioner, and they don't love it when you're sort of volunteering to cross their drain. Not only that, this is also going to be noted as a stream from Eagle. So we will be making a stream impact, which will require an Eagle wetland application. And they scrutinize every last little detail of things of what you're trying to do to their streams, because they hold those things very tightly and make it a very, very difficult process to obtain permitting for that. So what we would need to do is infill those soils in front of that house, and we'd be kind of creeping into that neighbor's property. Truly, we would. Now, granted, it's within an easement, right? That county drain easement is there, but it's basically their front yard that we would have to infill soils. We would have to build a wing wall. We would have to extend the culvert that you see that goes under the road right now and extend it fairly significantly into that property. So there's some practical difficulties for us to be able to put in that sidewalk. The applicant very willing to do so. They understand the whole walkability piece and they're supportive of it. But they wanted to make sure that it was communicated that there's some real practical difficulties to installing this sidewalk. And we really wanted the commission to weigh whether or not those difficulties are sort of reasonable to try to overcome. Not only that, what we noticed in the report as well is that it was requested to expand that sidewalk to 8 feet. Right now we're showing it at 5 feet. It's asked to be expanded to 8, which gets even wider in those folks' yard. But also what it should be understood is that the Ottawa County Road Commission standards are you must stay 5 feet back from the edge of curb to the sidewalk. Well, that's simply not possible if expanding it to 8 feet. Even at 5 feet, it's like right so close that it's really down to less than a foot if it were to meet that clearance standard. So when we talk about things like, first of all, safety, right? The whole idea of sidewalks is for safety. When you're bringing it that close to that curb, and I'm mostly talking about at that northern end where we have to flare out, again, by road commission standards, their regulations, they require us to do that flare. Well, where that flare comes in, and we expand the sidewalk to 8 feet, we simply just don't have that 5 feet standard. So we kind of get painted in a corner with these things, is that we try to meet, one group's standard over here, then we get kind of burned with somebody over there, right? So that's something that I think warrants discussion, right? We work with a lot of different agencies in doing these developments, right? I mean, there's the Road Commission, as I mentioned, Ottawa County Water Resource Commission, there's the Township Engineer, there's traffic engineers that we have to engage, there's soil borings that we need to get, there's wetland investigations. So we really try to meet all of the standards for all of those groups. But at a certain point, when they're in conflict, we just need to bring that to light and make sure that it's kind of fully discussed and make sure that it's reasonable what we're asking for. The other thing that came up that we noticed in the planner's report was the idea of buffers, right? And that was something that was discussed in quite a bit of detail at the last meeting as well. We understand Twin Oaks to the north is an adjacent property, and great, yes, you brought it up. Thank you for doing that. Here's my little buffer exhibit. We spent a little bit of time thinking about it, and Twin Oaks to the north is seemingly the one that is gaining the most attention on this. So that being an identical use, right? Both residential properties, one not kind of too much higher intensity than the other. They're really nearly very close in density to this proposed development. So if you take a look, what I've identified on there is, first of all, the approximate buffer to remain is highlighted on there, but it should also be noted that the county drain easement is there as well. We understood in the write-up in the planner's report that there was a request potentially to add more trees. However, planting trees in the county drain easement is not only frowned upon, but they would have something to say about it, whether or not you can actually do it. They need access, they need to be able to maintain, and they typically aren't going to look favorably upon planting more trees in that area. So what we did in our design, and we kind of talked about this in our previous meeting, is we we really pushed our grading of these sites and the grading of these buildings as steep as possible. The reason we did that is to preserve the trees, right? To preserve those buffers, right? So we made a concerted effort, not only in this area, but at the southern portion of the site as well. And that was through working with planning director that we were able to save a bit more trees, and we really kind of pushed the envelope on it from an engineering standpoint, because we understood that saving trees is something that's very important to this body. So when you imagine this site, right? So our proposed houses are, and you can't see the property line on this, but our proposed houses are 70 feet from the property line and 120 feet from the back of the houses to the north, which would be Twin Oaks. One other thing to mention is, if there's concern about headlights or anything like that. The one thing that our road does is our road is offset at a certain way where the headlights would be going right into one of our own buildings rather than even to one, if you notice that on the plan set there. If you click over to the next image, that just gives you another perspective. Just go to page 2. Yes, please. Just one other thing to point out. Yeah, if you scroll, there you go. So forgive me for kind of just doing a little bit of a goofy markup to the plan. But the other thing to point out is half of the site, we will say, is stormwater pond, right? So in terms of, the aesthetic of what they're going to be looking at, that stormwater pond is located in the area indicated on the image. So we're really talking about 3 buildings that are going to be sort of back to back with the Twin Oaks development. So just kind of food for thought when we talk about the requirement of tree preservation or buffers that we are providing, is that we've been very intentional to ensure that those are in place. Reforestation, and this is something that I want the planning director to clarify once we get into it a little bit more. This is, again, something we discussed in quite a bit of detail. We provided a calculation for how we came up with the number of trees. Our proposed 128 trees of planting, but 85 is the number that we had calculated that is required based on that 1,600 square foot factor. We noticed in the report that there was a mention of a 2-to-1 tree replacement. And we wanted to clarify what that meant, because that certainly isn't what the ordinance states. And so there was a little bit of confusion there. We wanted to clarify that one as well. Finally, building height, and this is the one piece of the PUD that we are requesting relief from the strict dimensional standards of the zoning ordinance. So as you probably know, the building height is calculated by, oh good, yes, thank you for bringing up the exhibit. The building height is calculated from existing grades. This is the only municipality that I've ever seen that. But fair enough that we understand that the ordinance states that it's from that existing grade. We need to infill soils on this site, mostly because of sanitary sewer. So the sanitary sewer is to the north of the site. It needs to snake throughout the site. Therefore, we need to build up the road as we go down to the south. The result of that is the majority of these sites do not need relief from that standard. They do not. The vast majority of these buildings qualify, and those are the ones that I've identified. We'll call it the north and the west portion of the site. At the southern portion of the site, those buildings are within 5 feet of what the standard is. Now, when the developer was creating their architecture for this site, they of course wanted to create something architecturally appealing. And those taller roof lines are something that and I guess I would say especially in these attached type units, you need to kind of make an effort to make them architecturally appealing. And that's what the intent of the developer was. As we went on with some engineering, and this is sort of later in the game, we discovered, shoot, we're 5 feet over. So we do have a path for a solution, and that is, this is a PUD. The whole intent, the whole nature of the PUD is to grant some relief. We understand it's a give and a take, but for the applicant to request relief from some of these strict dimensional standards. Again, this is a standard that is unique and I think would require just some thought from this commission as to whether or not it's really something that needs to be strictly applied in this case. We don't think that it does. We think that these are nice looking buildings, that they benefit from having those taller roof lines. It just so happens that we do need to have a lot of infill soils on this site because of sanitary sewer. So we're requesting that 5 foot of relief, which if you calculate it out of the 35-foot height that's required, that's about a 14% requested relief. Again, as a reminder, our density request on this site is less than half. We're foregoing 53% of the density on this site. So we would ask for a little consideration from this commission that 14% of that height is a reasonable request. So Stablewood is required to meet all aspects of the zoning ordinance, but within the PUD, we're able to request that relief. But the standards we need to meet within that zoning ordinance is your sections on your PUD. This one requires site condominium review, site plan review, ponds, tree preservation, open space. We also have to work with the aforementioned Road Commission, Water Resource Commission, Township Engineer, Eagle, and of course the Planning Commission. So we're here tonight to ask for your support and your recommendation to the Township Board for approval of the final PUD. The developer has made a good faith effort to create an improved plan, to listen to your comments, and to make Stablewood a great project. So we're here to answer questions tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, the public comment portion of the public hearing is now open. So if we have comments from this side of the room, if you'd like to step up and say your piece, please sign in. Keep it to about 3 minutes if you can. We'd appreciate that. Anybody on the left side? Our left, your right?
Hello, I'm
Hi.
Sarah Westenbrook. We live at 3438 Butternut. So we're just at the west side of this property. And I appreciate some of the information you already provided because one of our biggest concerns is trees, and it sounds like you are leaving. Because I'm not familiar with these types of pictures, are all circles, are those trees that are staying? So it does look like there's a good portion of trees, and that was one of our biggest concerns, that there's a lot of wildlife that's in there, and then we don't want the trees to go down. So that looks like it's good. One of my biggest concerns is traffic. When this plan was first presented, we were told 40 to 60 units in one pond, and now it's 80 units plus a single home and 2 ponds. So this has grown. I know it's still smaller than is allowed on that property for density. On the flip side, it's still 80 plus units. And I am assuming that most of them will probably have 2 cars per unit. So that's 160 plus additional traffic to an already insanely busy intersection, the intersection of Butternut and 144th. At 4:18 p.m. today, I saw somebody go right through that intersection without even stopping. It's a terrible intersection. It is highly dense traffic, especially around the time school in the morning, school in the afternoon. And if you're adding 180 plus or 160 plus cars to that intersection, what's going to be done about that? You're adding all of that additional traffic. So that's one of our biggest concerns, along with the light pollution from all those vehicles. And I think you addressed that most of that light pollution would go into their homes, not into the surrounding homes. Another concern that we had was, sorry, I had sent an email in, the potential changes to the water table, both in the dewatering process and in the process of that many more additional homes being there. My understanding is that the water table is already struggling in Park Township.
My husband and I spent thousands of dollars to put in underground sprinkling, dig a well, so that we would have, we spent thousands and thousands of dollars bringing in 40 truckloads of soil. And so we're concerned about the dewatering process and if those ponds that are gonna be on the property, if they're gonna throw off the water tables in that area, and therefore decrease our access to the water in the wells that we've put down. I think that that's my biggest concerns for now. Thank you.
Anybody else on the left-hand side? Sorry, I gotta get up to the mic here. Anybody else on the left who would like to speak? No. Okay, anybody on the right-hand side that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Pam Young. We live at Twin Oaks condominiums, which are just to the north side of the proposed plan up here. And one of my concerns, and I had sent an email Friday or Thursday last week, and I got a response from Lorna saying it was going to go to all of you guys.
We did.
Okay, as you can see, there were pictures added. We have no buffer for 6 months of the year because we have deciduous trees across there. So we're like the only one in that whole stretch that have no evergreens. And that's our main concern, is that we have to look at whatever's going on back there. And we would just ask that there'd be some full-size evergreen trees and put in there so that we could still enjoy the view. And then my next thought is, regarding the retention pond, how far away is that going to be from the drainage ditch?
We're gonna take, we'll take your questions.
Sure, okay. And then the other question about the retention pond. I'm not familiar with them, but do they draw, is that where mosquitoes are going to be? Is that, because I've never dealt with retaining ponds in our neighborhoods before. So that's a concern for all of us that live back in that little section. Other than that, we don't have a problem with it. We're just concerned about the trees back there, like everybody else, to block the view. But we're for the whole development otherwise.
Great,
thank you.
Anybody else on the right-hand side? All right. Seeing no more comments, let's see, let's go ahead and if you'd like to come up and respond to any of the things that were asked, I can run down the questions if you'd like.
Go ahead and fire away and I'll
fire
do
away.
my best.
I think, I'll answer one. I think the retention pond is about 4 acres. I read my notes correctly. The one of the big one in the back.
Yeah, yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Might be a little smaller than that.
Okay. So that's part of one. I think, let's see. Mosquitoes, I don't have any feedback on mosquitoes. I typically, these have, they have enough movement from the groundwater, and we don't typically see a lot of that. But
I think that's the reason for the minimum depth requirement, right? So it was actually called out on this most recent plan that we were 1 foot too shallow. So we got to that certain depth on this plan.
Perfect. Thank you for that. The addition of evergreens, I know we talked a little bit about just that one area. And I know that that was one of the things that came up in a lot of emails we received as well, just because that section on the north side, abutting Twin Oaks are mostly deciduous trees. Is there, I guess I should be able to tell, but I know that there's a lot of new trees being added, but there's also some that show the existing trees on here. Is there an intent at this point, desire, willingness on that, or provide some feedback?
Yeah, so I guess the question would be, where do you suggest that they go? Again, there's the county drain that is there. There's also steep grades, right? Again, we got pretty aggressive with our grading plan to preserve the existing trees. So
I'm struggling to find the right spot where additional trees could go that make sense, where we could plant them. I don't think that the applicant's averse to doing it. It's just where's the most practical and reasonable place to put it. I'm struggling to find where they would go and make sense.
Yeah, we've had drainage swale issues in the past with trees.
Yeah, right, because then they have to come maintain it and then assess everybody that's on that drain all. Well, it's on drain, we know how far that goes. Everybody's gonna get assessed for that kind of stuff, and on both sides of the property too.
Let's see, I think the question about dewatering, and I know we have had some challenges with a couple of, hopefully the last couple of weeks are gonna help us with water tables. But there was a question around that, the dewatering process, the pond. Can you just speak to, I guess, your experience with those? So I think that's helpful for people to understand how the water tables are fed and how that impacts the ponds.
Yeah, well, not being an engineer, I'm gonna stay away from describing it in too much detail, but I'm not certain that we have to dewater on this site. We may just dig it in the wet.
I would think. Yeah.
I'd say.
I'm not certain of that.
Only just for clarification that these are groundwater level ponds, so.
Okay,
The
so there's
ponds-
nothing.
Yeah, the ponds themselves aren't gonna really affect the water table at all, we explored that. And that's what we're looking after the planning commission, when we were looking at the trail view development and moving it too, so that part should, sometimes the dewatering for utilities. Will affect the surrounding water table temporarily. Sometimes that's exacerbated by drought, but that is a temporary situation. And as Chuck was saying, that they're not expecting a deep dewatering, if any, it sounds like, for the project, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Okay, great. I think the other ones were really road commission questions around traffic. We know there'll be more traffic. We know that's a challenging spot.
One thing I can,
Yeah, go ahead.
maybe I will address just a little piece of that, because
Turn lane piece.
yeah, so, traffic is always a difficult one. I'm gonna stay away from most of it, but what I will say is you'll notice the center for left turn lane there. We engaged a traffic consultant, a traffic engineer, to look at this site specifically for the necessity of a center for left turn lane. And what they do is they calculate the number of trips that this site will generate. That report clearly showed that there's no need for a center for left turn lane, not even close, truly not even close. However, the road commission said we want one anyway. Enough. The applicant said, no problem, we will do that. Now, we are running into, well, it's not necessarily an issue yet, but Holland Charter Township, directly to the east of this project, they're paying attention too, because their properties are affected by it. And I'd love to have a great answer for them too. And truly, the only answer is the road commission says we got to do it. We have no choice. We commissioned a study to look at the traffic movements on this site, and the impact was de minimis. It truly was. It looks like a lot of sites on here, and it is. Listen, 81 home sites, it's not nothing, but when you look at how roads design, when you look at traffic engineering criteria, when you look at the actual data, the actual science that they look at, it doesn't impact the road system as much as it feels like it might. So putting in the center for left, it's going in at the southern intersection. And that's because the road commission says they'd like to see it.
I think those are the questions that we had, ones that I captured. Any other, while the public hearing is open, any other feedback, additional comments? If not, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and go on to discussion. Yes.
Did I ask how far away the retention pond is from the drainage ditch or whatever that's called? I'm just
From the
curious.
drain?
From the drain.
From the drain.
How much land is there between that and the drainage ditch?
It's, yeah, I don't know if you've got the numbers on that. Do you have an idea?
Well, the pond is 75 feet away from the property line. I can tell you that because that's the requirement of Park Township. As far as the drainage ditch, it's something less than 75 feet.
but I guess I'm not sure what the intent of the question is.
Yeah,
You don't understand what?
the intent of the question, what you're trying to.
What I'm trying to find out is how close is that retention pond gonna be to the drainage ditch? Because our condo backs right up to the drainage ditch. So the whole idea is just to see how close the retention pond will actually be to our condo.
Gotcha. Okay, well, 75 feet from the property line, from the edge of the retention pond. And so you would have, and the drain is gonna be closer than the property, so it's gonna be less than that 75 feet. I think that's. Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question? Because I've visited that site twice now and I'm still confused.
sure.
So this is for Chuck. In relation to the condos and the ditch, which side of the drain is the property line on?
So the design drain is, I'm gonna say nearly entirely on this property, on the Stablewood property.
Okay.
There could be a portion of it that either appears or is actually on the Twin Oaks property. I would say the majority of it though is on this property.
So all of the evergreens on the above the ditch all along the Twin Oaks condominiums, those are all on Twin Oaks property.
Yes. Yep, those evergreens are Twin Oaks evergreens.
But the landscaping that goes, with some Twin Oaks landscaping that goes to the edge of the drain, the top edge of the drain. Is that on Twin Oaks property or is that on Stablewood property? That's where I was getting confused because there's plantings and new young evergreen trees, and I don't know whose property they're on today. And
I don't know. I don't know that I did.
They're right behind this lady's condo. That landscaping.
Not just ours, there's two buildings, so there's.
Yes, yeah, there's several, and the landscape and the relatively new landscaping goes right up to the edge of the drain.
We planted on the mound. Just
Right,
like-
and I'm just trying to get rid of the confusion. Are those on the Twin Oaks side or the Stablewood side of the property line? Because it gets to your question, how far is that property line? It's 75 feet from the drain from the property line. Well, where is that property line in relationship to your condo?
Yeah, without knowing exactly which trees you're talking about, I guess I can't say for certain which trees you mean and where they're at in relation to the property. What I can say is those evergreen trees, if you're looking to the eastern portion of the site, those ones are going to be on Twin Oaks property.
And then
and those are, I'm guessing those are probably pretty close right up to the edge of the drain of the swale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the northwest property corner post is on the Twin Oaks side.
Yeah, I have a
ditch.
I have a plan that shows
drain. Yep, and she's down here.
Yeah, so you can see the majority of the drain.
But all of these, this is the long line. Are those theirs or
I don't think
yours?
we picked up on our survey. I don't think we put their evergreen trees. I think they're right.
Okay, so.
Because they're in the solar course. They're in.
Yes, yes.
These are not dead straight.
Okay, so these aren't them. Okay. Thank you.
If public input, public questions, comments complete, we can go ahead. Okay, good. What is this? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just wondering if you can speak to the time frame of this and what just like the other hearing had heard, like the potential cost to these units.
I guess that's up to the builder to determine if they want to share cost information at this point. I know that's a little fluid, but timeline, I think you were looking at 26, 27 in terms of completion. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to that. I mean, we talked about it at the, at the preliminary meeting. As you mentioned, road pricing is pretty fluid. The intention is to be anywhere from the 375 to 475 price range for these units. Timeline, we spent some time with the previous applicant. Bascroft spent some time kind of talking through that lengthy process. Chuck alluded to it earlier in this application as well. So significant steps that have to happen after this from an agency approval standpoint, especially Eagle, being the longest one. So the exact time frame a little bit unknown. Sometime in the year of 2026. Again, as Mike Bascroft alluded to, probably later in the year. Of course, if the stars align and that could happen sooner, but likely late summer, early fall next year.
You've got a lot of water on this property too. A lot of interaction probably with Eagle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yes, Eagle Township engineer, there's just, a lot of steps, right? Oftentimes, I think these meetings get viewed as the final step and really from our world, they're really the beginning step of a lot that has to happen, beyond this and trying to kind of balance out, the different needs of the different agencies. Oftentimes, again, the community views it as developer and township, whatever they agree on is exactly what we can do and just a lot more that goes into that. But appreciate everybody's kind of work or your work up until this point. So
thank you.
What do you see the total build out? Total build out schedule. If you're starting next, I'm really trying to give the answer to the people in the audience. Build out the whole community.
How good will the economy be? 27, 28, 29. It's hard to say, a project of this size, while I think we'll have kind of the affordability component, on our part, obviously it is still, it is still 81 units. These are unique in the sense that it's unlike a single family home community where you can both have a combination of spec homes and custom homes. Essentially, all of these have to be built before they can be sold, given the nature of the building. So, just capital constraints, restrict that a little bit. If I had to guess, to build out the project, that's probably 4 years.
Great, thank you. All right. I think we're going to go ahead at this point and close the public hearing and start our discussions on this end. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Support.
All in favor? Opposed? I just want to start by saying we appreciate the work around the open space. I do. I'll speak for myself. I appreciate the work around the open space. I think we asked for some additional amenities around the pond. It was great to see the addition of the walking path, picnic area, and you've given us a lot more context around the sidewalk. So we'll probably want to have some more discussion around that as well. I think the other piece, and you mentioned the fact that the building plan is much less dense than what's allowed. I think that that speaks to not only some of the challenges you've got with water, with the drain, with the wetlands and some of the other areas, but also the desire to create a community that's going to work well, I think, in the space. One of the things that I'll just mention as chair is that and I've said this before, but I know you're not all here for every one of our meetings, but one of the challenges we have is that we recognize the shortage of housing we have, not just in Park Township, but in Ottawa County and also in the state. And at the same time, we recognize how important it is to maintain agricultural property because we know how important that is to everybody in the township. I think the feedback that we all received when we were going through the master planning process spoke to the fact that while there's a recognized need for housing, there's also a desire to maintain agricultural property and preserve that. So what we've tried to do is to try to look for areas, and there aren't that many left, where we have an opportunity to encourage infill by the developers. In other words, where do we already have house developments? Where do we already have utilities? Those types of things. So it's a little bit of additional context for one of the reasons that we felt that this area was a good location for additional development. Okay. With that, I'll open it up to our commission for additional comments. Let's start down here with Dennis. I've been picking on Dan all night this morning.
Well, I think the developer's done a good job of going back, having listened to us and making accommodations based on our input. And I don't see anything here that gives me alarm or concern. So I'm pleased with the application before us.
Thank you.
Say, I agree. Similarly, the location and the property comes with numerous challenges. And I appreciate especially the work around the open space, the picnic area. Once we get through the general comments, I would like to revisit the sidewalk conversation. But I think a lot of our other comments and feedback definitely appear to have been incorporated based on the preliminary discussions, and we appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I really like what you've done here. For one, you haven't maximized the site. I mean, you've really paid attention to tree preservation. I like the circulation and the flow. I like the affordability. I've heard of so many stories of teachers at West Ottawa that can't even afford to live here because it's so expensive. So I think, and I think it could be a really nice complement to Twin Oaks as well. So I guess two things as it relates to Twin Oaks. And I know you have your 5-foot variance that you're looking for in terms of height. Is that because is the pitch on these, is this pitch here similar to what you would find at the pitch at Twin Oaks, or is it a steeper pitch?
I don't believe what we're dealing with is a steeper pitch. Essentially, it's just the 2-story design. Trying to get that smaller footprint. Again, to deal with some of the grading issues on the site, to preserve those trees, and so to kind of get that footprint as small as we possibly can really necessitates a need to go up, and also really just I think provide a housing type that you don't always see, right? There's lots of condos both in Park Township and Holland Township that will be a little bit smaller in nature, main floor bedrooms, 2 bedrooms on the main floor. There's not a lot of opportunity to get into 3-bedroom units for a family that might want something new construction, but needs more than 2 bedrooms. And so to have that second floor, so that's really what's necessitating the need. We mentioned roof pitch because what we don't want to do is really kind of make the units ugly by dropping those to get into compliance. But really it's the 2-story design that's necessitating the request for relief.
That's great. And I just kind of like, sometimes you go from one subdivision to the next and you look at roof pitches and now it's on, oh my gosh, they look so different. So I like the consistency that you see as you go from one to the other. So
and part of what changed that roof pitch was to keep the look consistent even through our own community. We didn't want one section, I'll reference the middle section with walkout bi-levels. We didn't want those roof pitches to look drastically different than the section to the south. So, that was part of that discussion as well. So.
No, that's great. The other thing just around trees, and it's just because I have a drain that goes right through my property at the back as well, and we had a couple new units built on the other side. They did at the very edge of their property. The ditch is actually on my side, so I know your situation isn't the same. They went over and above to put evergreens in there, and I actually went over there literally a month ago, and I said, "You did so much more than I thought that you could do," and that's what I appreciated. I was happy to see the development back there, but they took the extra effort to see where those evergreens could go. So I understand your situation, and I just hope that that's something that can help out your neighbors.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we want to clear as many or as few trees as possible. Also don't want to clear trees in order to plant new trees. But yeah, we want to create, screening, for our communities as well. So we're happy to if there's a specific gap or a specific section. I've always believed that to be very heavily with evergreen trees on the Twin Oaks side. But if there's a section that's not, we'll have to happily look at that. And we want that. We want to be good neighbors, and we want that for our site as well, quite frankly. So
I like what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. I really don't have questions for you guys. I agree with everybody else. Everything's looking really good. You mentioned a stream. Is that just an underground flow?
So Eagle, the state agency that regulates wetlands, has different categories for what their wetlands are. They categorize a stream as something that how do I want to put it? They heavily scrutinize what you're doing in a stream, more so than maybe in some other wetlands. It's just like a little puddle somewhere, right? Sometimes it can just be like a little puddle in a field somewhere. They'll categorize that as wetland. This Basan drain, the drain going through our site, they're going to categorize as a stream.
The drain itself?
Yes.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
It shows up. It shows up on the wetland mapper. We provided that in the submittal as well. So it is a wetland. It's a wetland and a stream. So it just kind of it bumps it up quite a bit because they heavily scrutinize every little detail that you do in that area, and sometimes they just flat out won't let you do it. So that's just a concern of ours that not only is it wetland, it's also a stream that Eagle is going to heavily scrutinize.
Yeah, so I was just curious if they even named it, because that adds another layer of issues. If it's named. Okay. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Dan?
Well, I'm going to start by saying that I walked from the northwest corner today, right down the middle of the stream after a week of pouring rain, and it was dry. My feet did not get wet all the way down to where it takes its right turn. But there was a pond behind this lady's condominium. I think that's a wetland, right? As I usually do, I counted residences because it helps me get the scope of Stablewood. And I'm only looking at the west side of 144th between Butternut and Quincy. Twin Oaks condominiums, as I counted, were 53 units. North of Twin Oaks to Quincy, there is 1 unit. South of Twin Oaks to Butternut, there's 11 units. And so the current, as we see here today, total of residents on the Park Township side of 144th between Butternut and Quincy is 65. So we're adding 80. And that's 123% increase in homes on the west side of 144th. I'm not going to talk about traffic because we've talked about that ad nauseum. But currently there is no infrastructure for pedestrians and cyclists on the west side, the Park Township side of 144th, other than the beautiful new loop connecting the two development entrances. Thank you very much for that. I am not going to dictate that pedestrian safety is your problem. Um, but I'm being asked to make a decision on a PUD approval with no roadmap to how we're going to make that side of the road accessible to what is on the other side of the road. As you said, you're making a family attractive development, which most families have children. Family Fair, Mercado, Boys and Girls Club, pizza place, laundromat, bar and grill, coffee shop. It's all on the other side of the road, and there isn't even a crosswalk down at Butternut and 144th without doing a three-way loop. So the one thing I'm going to ask of you is to extend that sidewalk down to your south boundary line as an indicator that we can all point at that we have to do something during this build out to get pedestrian access and a crosswalk down at Butternut and 144th, because they're going to be jaywalking across the street, and that's not going to stop jaywalking, but at least we'll say we made an attempt to get them across safely. So my only request on this public approval is to extend that sidewalk another, however far that entrance is, 40 or 50 feet to your property line, might be more. Do neighboring properties on 144th and Butternut still have access to the woods on your property? Can they go in there? Any reason they can't?
I'm sorry, can you clarify what you're asking?
Yeah, the residences on 144th or other residences, or excuse me, residents on Butternut and residents on 144th. There's no reason they can't walk through those woods.
Well, it's correct. Yeah, I mean, it'll be private property. It'll be owned by a condo association. It's not public property. So it's private
But
property.
it's open space in a PUD, which isn't that.
Well, yeah, so the open space is open space. It's a common element to the association. So it's still private property, but it's just open space for the property owners. The ordinance actually says for it to be the use and enjoyment of people within the development.
I can pull up the language. I think it does say that it's primarily for the use of people in the development, but there's some public outputs, which is.
It was sort of the same conversation we had in the last PUD earlier tonight. So I just want to make sure that it's not just a viewscape that these people have enjoyed for a long time, but that it's. I was thinking that it was by ordinance that they had access to go in there.
I believe you're right. I believe that's how the PUD ordinance reads. So we would have, I mean, we have no choice but to comply with the way the PUD ordinance reads.
One of the benefits of a PUD is the amenity, public amenity, like primarily for the use of the residents, but. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. And lastly, I got to get my maps to find it. First of all, it's wonderful that we have this path, and I like where the path is. I like what parking lot is, and then we have this view question coming from Twin Oaks. So let me throw this out. In the woods, beyond the buffer, meaning you're going to be taking it out. This would be behind Butternut Drive, the Tharps and Curtis Miller. Behind there's. It's strange. It's an enclosure, a deer-proof enclosure, and it's on the what's this one? The current site plan. There's an enclosure with beautiful pine and spruce trees in it, in a 6-foot high deer fence around it. And that's in the area that you're gonna cut. Would it be possible? And these things aren't small. Would it be possible for a tree company to move and plant those over along your path and help the deciduous tree mix on this side of the drain? I don't know.
Tree company that will do that, we'll look into that.
Yeah, look, it's not, it wouldn't be cheap, but it would save some, I mean, they've been protected for a lot of years to grow up as nice as they have, and I have no idea of the history. But I was pleased to see that it was on the plan. And then one final aside, I also ran into crosses for Max and Lola behind the barn. Those are dogs, not horses. I was wondering about that, but I'm wondering if there's any history that somebody wants to preserve those crosses.
There's a lot.
Oh, 6 or 6. They're all named Max and Lola. That's all I've got.
That's it. I think the sidewalk came up about 2 or 3 different places there. I know Chuck was trying to give us some context to all of that was going to involve. And I think on top of that, we had a recommendation from staff that needed to be asphalt, and we also had a request or suggestion to extend that further. So that might be a good time to talk more about the sidewalk. I think you gave us a little bit of context on it. Can you kind of build on that a little bit? So we understand, you said there were some challenging elements to that maybe you could help us understand a little bit more.
Well, yeah,
View of it too. Street view of it.
yeah, are you ever able to do in fact, actually, if you go to.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Here's our little tree removal.
Yeah, we're visual guys, thanks.
So that's one of the primary spots that is a challenge, right? That is where that ditch is. The culvert comes out right kind of behind that sign where it drops down a bit. Here you go. And there's some images of what the sidewalk would actually look like for, those neighbors with it cutting right through their property. But again, primarily that first image showing the steepness of the ditch that goes down in there, that would all have to be infilled with soil. And I understand that it may not look like a stream. Half the time, more than half the time, wetlands don't have water in them. They look for certain vegetation that's growing in it, or, sometimes it can sustain aquatic life, but oftentimes it's simply what sort of things are growing in that area. So I think that would, that kind of qualifies in that area too. So it's the infill of that area. It's the proximity of that sidewalk really to the road, with it extending to 8 foot wide. It doesn't even seem to be that safe of a walk. It's intrusive into these neighbors' properties. It would require a Water Resource Commission approval to interrupt their drain. We would be extending that culvert within their drain. We would have to build a wing wall within their drain to extend it further out, right? Because we need area to walk. It's got to be at least that 8 foot, so it's got to be at least 5 foot away from the road, then 8 more feet, and then however much further for that culvert itself. And then again, on top of that, eagle permission to interrupt their stream, which is just a tall order. Sometimes I think of things in terms of, is it possible? Is it practical? Is it reasonable? Possible. Sure, we can probably find a way. Is it practical? No, I don't think so. And is it reason? In that, does it really make sense what we're trying to do here? Maybe in lieu of going to the north, we would just go to the south instead. As you mentioned, maybe that's a possibility. I don't know. But there's challenges, significant ones, of pushing that path 8 foot wide and connecting our 2 roads. There just is. We had approached the road commission, because we've done this before in designs and doing a mid-block crossing, right? So striping
signage saying, hey, there's a crossing here. We've done it before. We don't love doing it. Road Commission obviously doesn't love it either because typically you want a crosswalk at an intersection, right? We value safety as much as anybody, but we're trying to find a way to satisfy all our different sort of masters on this project. Road Commission being one that they don't, they have their standards and they are much more black and white. They didn't like it. They did not like a crossing here. They did not like a mid-block crossing at this location. Fair enough. We just have significant difficulties pushing that path to the north or installing a sidewalk between our two roads. So those are the reasons that we have challenges in doing it.
So is the issue, if the issue is between the two roads, but it's not from the southern road to the southern property line?
I mean,
or is it there too?
We don't have the same challenges there. No. No, we wouldn't, because we wouldn't be crossing that stream. Don't cross the streams like Ghostbusters said.
Yeah.
Right, we would not have the same challenges going to the south.
What if you connected the sidewalks like between the smaller detention pond and the two pieces of private property? You've got a 75-foot width there. What if you linked it up there instead of along the road? And then
you're still crossing that stream.
So runs right.
We're talking like behind
same stream. Okay.
Yeah, right. That rain comes straight through up
that raging torrent down there.
Yeah.
Yes.
If I could just make a comment on the path itself, so the questions about asphalt and the 8 foot, those are the township standards for the side paths. So,
Okay.
The width, 8 foot is really the minimum right now. There have been suggestions to move to 10. I think in a lot of cases that's overkill. I wouldn't advocate for that, but with that said, I think that asphalt is the more important component that you're going to try to get something in there because that's, with that equipment that is more compatible with that. We didn't have time to do a deep dive into this. When we looked at it initially, there are challenges there. It seems like they could be overcome, it could be viable, but they could be problematic. I don't think that we've done a deep enough dive to know for sure as far as that specific component. And if that's the sticking point, there are a couple ways that you could go about it, or that you've gone about it in the past. And I'll say, if you're looking, based on what I'm hearing and what I've seen from the applicant, the process that we've done up until this point, it seems to me that this development is really ready to go to the township board or it's close to it. That's what I'm hearing. But I wouldn't want that to be a sticking point. I don't love this, but there has been a condition in the past. You'll remember when it said the sidewalk needs to go through as is and if changes need to happen, that needs to come back to the planning commission to review that piece. If that's the case, I don't love that. But if that's the sticking point and that's kind of what it needs to do to kind of keep this moving and going through, I'll just put that out there as a possibility.
So it's just those areas that need to narrow up. The 8 feet is accommodatable everywhere else? Or are you saying the entire path system is needing to be 5 feet?
Well, I guess let me clarify. We're not saying that the entire sidewalk through the entire development needs to be 8 feet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's specific to that primary road. Yes, the sidewalk within the development can be.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that can be concrete, because that way you maintain it by the association and not by the township.
Right.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, and so, again, just to clarify, just yet another one of the challenges that I don't think I mentioned in my sort of second round talking about it is, if we go to 8 feet, we're gonna be in violation of the road commission again, right? We're gonna be too close to their curb and they don't just look the other way. They say, well, that's in violation. So then we gotta come back and be like, well, we can't do 8 feet now. So I don't wanna come back in front of you here again for all that.
Township versus road.
Who wins?
I don't know.
Conversations. We try to work.
Yeah. I guess, let me just ask one question. It might seem like a dumb one, but is the desire to have the, and you mentioned the, having, what about having the side path run from the southern entrance south to the, end of the property line? I'm assuming you're following, the end of the property line is not visible on this map, right? It's at the bottom of the triangle, or are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
I'm talking
You're
about
talking about the homes that are
the homes,
the top of, yeah, the top of the square.
the top of the square.
Okay.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's just that it's more of a signal.
That's why I was asking that, because I could see if it was going further, that it would be almost an indicator for people to go to the intersection rather than, but
You can't,
you can't do it.
can't ask them to put a,
No,
do a sidewalk down.
I was just trying to clarify
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
Listen, that's something we'd consider in lieu of going, if we went to the south property line. And I think that's a reasonable compromise.
And I'm only looking for that loop connector someplace else because we want to be able to have the people on the north side of your development get to.
Yeah.
The sidewalk.
Well, they'd have to walk their dog through the neighborhood to get there. You're right. I mean, but I think that would be the idea is we could go from the south road to the south property line. I think that would be a good compromise.
Because you do have the walking path.
Yes.
Run
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I will say, if you're a walker walking through this neighborhood to get to the south path, not a big deal, right? Like if you're,
How about if you're 12?
I mean, if you're 12, you're at the mercy of your parents' rules of how far you can and should go without supervision. But I guarantee you those 12-year-olds are gonna go, because I see them all over the neighborhood all the time. I'm, they could go from that north through, and honestly, going through that neighborhood is probably still safer.
Yeah.
Not gonna step on the road commission's toes, but I would personally like to spend the least amount of time possible as a pedestrian on 144th anyway, personally.
Yeah.
I know you want to get to point A from point B and have the ability to cross safely because there are reasons and amenities to do that, but that's not where I'm going to take the dog for a walk.
Right. No. And I think the reason, one other thing to point out, the reason for the 8-foot width on the side paths is because there's so many different people using them with different devices.
Mm-hmm.
You've got motorized vehicles, you've got, you name it, bicycles, walkers. I mean, that's probably a good chunk of it, but there's a lot more motorized vehicles out there too, so. Okay, I guess. So we've talked about, how is everybody feeling about this, about the desire / consideration of going from the south property line to the southern, from the southern entry to the southern property line?
That's fine.
That reasonable? Sounds like that's.
In your discussions with the road commission, have they given you any indication on what they may be planning with that intersection that's just to the south of there?
No.
Okay, there's been talk of I'm interested to find out, and maybe they're not going to share with you because they told you to put the turn lane in. That might be part of their road widening development. They're going to put a roundabout at that intersection also, has been talked. So maybe 2028, 29, when you guys are finishing up this development, I'm thinking that intersection is going to look totally different than what it looks like today.
Very possible.
So I didn't look that up. I'm pretty sure that that's.
Dates?
Well, I'm pretty sure that that's conceptual. So the way a lot of the road projects work, a lot of the road planning works, they're in 3-year increments, and I think it was just about the start work of these TIP plans. And so they typically, the projects will flow from the long-term plan into the TIP plan, and then actually now sometimes there are funding sources that are outside of TIP that might not go in that direction, it may happen a little bit faster, but that's usually how that goes. I can ask them, find out where that's at in the process.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I recall you mentioning that to us previously. So thanks for that reminder. And I don't know, they just took away our discretionary what is it called? Revenue sharing to put in the roads. Maybe they'll put the roundabout in for us. I don't know.
It sounds like stuff that trustees did.
I just had one last thing too, if we're kind of wrapping it up, I just wanted clarification on page 8, under the recommendations of the reforestation. So it states that the community development department may require that up to 2 trees be planted for every tree that needs to be removed. I'd like to clarify what the intent of that is.
Oh, I see. So this is based on some experience that we've had with other developments that already have tree preservation ordinances that are under that ordinance already. And so one of the things that we tend to see is that when these construction projects take place, they have effects on trees that aren't always visible initially. And so, you know, you've got these trees and you said we're gonna protect these trees. And there's a lot of disturbance that happens when these construction processes are going on, which is why there's a root protection is mentioned now to try to figure out how to ameliorate that and to protect the trees that are there. What I'm seeing is that when those trees are 5 or 8 years down the line, and then they're diseased or they start to tilt over somebody's house and then they need to be removed. You're taking a very large tree and there's nothing that requires it at that point to be replaced. There's nothing in any of the existing regulations. Now, since this is a PUD, there's a little bit more flexibility. And so this would be in the event that there were a tree that needed to be removed because of health, safety, it's dead, that it could then be replaced. And because you're usually looking at a large tree versus small trees, that potentially replacing even 2 trees. So that was the intent behind that comment.
Okay.
Does everybody express their desires at this point? Hopefully that's where we are. Well, if we are, let's see, I think we've already closed the public hearing, right? Okay, thank you. Been a long night. I think if we're set, I would definitely entertain a motion if someone would like to make one. I won't tell you what it would be, but I think we're pretty positive on this.
If you are looking, pardon me for the interruption.
Sure.
If you are looking at this,
Right.
this is what will go to the board. Let's see, so under number 9, general compliance, I don't think that I got the figure that did right for the height, I don't think that's in the document yet. So that would need to be included there, the 5-foot relief, so that would be a height up to 658 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
Just like the plan. Yeah.
So that would need to be added to that.
What is it doing?
I'm on that's page 9. Okay, page 9, and then that was number 9. And then with the sidewalk, could somebody just reiterate what your decision was on that, so I think that.
Sure. The decision on that was that we would have a side path running from the southern entrance to the southern property.
Okay, and asphalt, and did you determine width?
I think I think it was an 8-foot requirement, right? Township.
Yeah,
Okay with that?
yeah, it's, and that's in lieu of the.
Okay. And so that probably would be a site plan change as opposed to, so maybe include it in the motion as a site plan change, or when it goes to the board.
Okay.
But that would be, I don't think that would be in the resolution report.
Okay, so we've got the southern. Southern side. Yes,
I'm thinking back to a comment from the last discussion as well.
okay,
So this is an association then, and they're gonna be responsible for maintaining the water retention pits, what are you gonna call them? I don't know. I'm assuming then we'll have mosquito repellent, stagnant water preventative. And that will just be part of the ownership then of the develop. Okay, good, thanks.
Too many notes written on too many pieces of food.
I know, I'm trying to get all the things that we agreed to here in one place. Deeper, to be able to put everything on. Okay, so I've got southern sidewalk, or sidewalk from southern entrance to southern property line, 8-foot asphalt. That's gotta be set in the site plan revision, that would need to be included.
Correct.
Okay. Do we have any other things that I've forgotten that we need to include as far as any other changes? 5-foot variance in height, yes. The grading, yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll revise this document to just include that, that's okay. And then if there's a signature line on here, there's a signature line. I'll run it past you, just so before it goes to the board.
Okay, sounds good. So the motion would need to include these changes as well, correct? Okay. I'll take a crack at it if you guys would like. Do we have any other things that we want to that need to be included, or do we've got the sidewalk and we've got the 5-foot variance, great. Okay. I think there was I think the statement is that would be a desire to be able to accommodate that, but I don't think it was yeah. Because I think the intent is that it's important for the Twin Oaks residents as well as your new residents coming in. Yep. All right.
Sorry, make sure I'm on, but it's a good faith ask. So I agree with it. But I'm just making sure that I clearly understand and I'm aligned to it and still moving forward. But that's a good faith ask. The other is an actual site plan amendment.
Correct. Okay. All right, I'll take a crack at this. Would make a motion that we have a site plan revision that would include the addition of a sidewalk from the southern entrance to the southern property line. The sidewalk would be 8 feet wide. It would consist of asphalt, and the other change or the other modification to the site plan would be the 5-foot variance being approved for the relative to the grading. And Mika, you can, I think, speak to exactly how that has to be.
Yeah, because it's the 5-foot adjustment to the resolution report.
Okay. Adjustment to, can you give me that last part again?
Adjustment to the height requirement in the resolution report.
Okay. Height requirement.
Okay.
Okay. So accept that as a motion. Those things included. Do I have a second?
I'll support.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Thanks, everybody. Passed unanimously. These are all the Thanks, Scott. This is kind of when I support. That is the side to other business and no. Hey, folks, we're still in the session, so good.
I can see.
Take your conversation out.
Yeah, everybody that. Everybody's. Yeah. Because there's.
Oh, my mic must be off. Hey, guys, we're still in session. Could you take the conversation out, please? Thank you.
Trying to get her free.
The next means we'll wait for you. All right, thank you, everybody. Okay, member and staff reports. Charlotte, let's start with board. What you got for us?
So it's he requested last month, questions that you asked for, information from Energy Cousins to get them in the board.
Just given the, manager Cousins provided that data from 1 week. It was the beginning of October. You can see the 6 locations for the speed radar signs. The average speed limit is in the next column. The 85th percent speed is actually 85% of all the traffic readings. So those max speeds kind of skew it. I just want to let you know that if we were to have done a speed study and the 85th showing close to the 50 mile an hour, they wouldn't lower the speed limit for us, they'd up it to 50 miles an hour.
And that's a state.
That's a state.
That is one of the big thumbs down for the state of Michigan. It's an unusual thing. They require the speed to be set to the 85th percentile speed, kind of regardless of the Spanish language effort. So
right. So Mr. Cousins notes there, I mean, the maximum speeds that he listed were just recorded once in different days. We do have law enforcement. We just don't have law enforcement 24/7. So they're going to write as many tickets as they can as they come across, but this is just where it's sitting right now. The bottom paragraph is his response to a resident who had emailed, and I'm not going to read that to you. You can read that on your own time, but it basically goes through again the 85th percentile, where it's at, and what will happen if we get a speed study with the road commission. While he actually states at some point in the future we may do that, it is my opinion at this point, and again, it's just me talking, I don't think this is a good opportunity to do that. What we initially saw at the beginning with people hitting the brakes and slowing down, I really think they're ignoring the signs now. That is my opinion. Which is most unfortunate. So hopefully we can get some cooperation with the sheriff's patrol to, like they did at the end of the summer, last 2 hours of shift, concentrate down by Ottawa Beach with regard to the speeders going into the state park. Maybe they do some more patrols along the entire length of Ottawa Beach Road. And that's where that sits. The rest of my report, this morning we had court on the short-term rentals, and Judge Holsing runs a very tight courtroom. It was efficient. They did arguments for an hour and a half, which I didn't expect it to even last that long, but it did. And it had started with him asking very, very specific questions of both our attorney and the opposing attorney. And that just demonstrated to me that he actually read 3,000 pages worth of testimony and depositions and arguments. that were presented to him. So it was really good. I couldn't give you a gut feel on how it goes. I just have no idea. But he ended it with saying that he will have a written decision delivered real soon. I don't know what real soon means.
And then whatever that decision is, there could potentially be another appeal.
There potentially could be. However, the township's stance is regardless of what the decision is, we're going to start enforcing immediately or as soon thereafter.
Yeah, if
Mhm.
if there, we expect to appeal, there regardless, it will almost certainly appeal. But our attorney has indicated that once the decision comes down, we're free to start enforcing. It's not the same kind of situation once it goes to an appeals court that you have to kind of hands on. So at that point, we will be able to be much more proactive and get us out there and enforce.
And that is beneficial because, well, not right word. Our residents have been giving feedback. They've been reporting, they've been given pictures to Mika's entire staff and so there's lots of data and it's not like we're gonna have to sit and wait for a certain amount of time. We've got the data now to move forward. We're correct. We're just waiting on the ruling that hopefully is in our favor.
I'll just add if I can, one of the things that Dan said during his comments, I thought it was interesting is he made a point of saying that we were not intending or planning to make retroactive penalties or punishments. So I think that was a kind of a nod to, we really just want to start enforcing our existing ordinance and not trying to be vindictive with existing owners.
Yeah, I think that I interpreted that as an olive branch as well.
So how we go about that? Did you have more to say on the case?
No, just that two different attorneys, two different presentation methods. We know one's very theatrical and the other is very methodical in getting from facts from A to B and to C and D, and it's all in order. And so it was interesting to watch it all.
That very fast, it's hard to say. You would say fast could be December or it could be like Thanksgiving. You would expect to see it by the first of the year, but you don't know. It's up to the judge. But we really need it by Memorial Day. That's really kind of what it needs to happen. So once the season is kind of calm, we're going to work as soon as we get it. But that's kind of
Yeah, it is at the end of the season now. For the vast majority. There are still a few. The rest of my notes. So the board met last on the 10th. We approved new cemetery fees to keep aligned with neighboring communities and also allow for enhancements, improvements in our services. And those are going to go ahead and take effect January 1st. Healthcare insurance for staff was discussed and Trustee Gerard asked that we table any decision on that until our November meeting to get some more comparable quotes. He's a doctor. He just went through all that at his office. So I thought that was a very good ask. We don't know if it'll work or not. We may be stuck with what we have, but most definitely going forward, we'll have competitive quotes with regard to insurance. We're going to meet next week at a working session and start the process for the new manager search. So it is gonna just start with what we're gonna look for. What are the board's requirements? What do we want? And it'll snowball from there, but we are starting that process. The Trillium Grove ultimately was approved to move forward with a 5-2 vote with amendments. And specifically, there was still more conversation on the 40-foot buffer. We'll see if they abide by that, and we'll see how it gets enforced. And I still contend that that wasn't the right decision for the township. They could have waited a couple more years, but water under the bridge. We keep talking about their tree ordinance, but we haven't moved forward with that.
Mika might be able to give you some perspective.
So,
Tree ordinance.
yeah. And it's not, I mean, we have other ordinances to update as well, but, we keep hearing developments and we still don't have a bow tied around what we're asking for. So can we stop any more requests for building until we get these things tidied up?
You know, I don't. You can do it more and more in certain circumstances, but I don't think that. I think that we would face legal challenges if we wanted to say we have to stop until we get this situated. Now, that said, I think we've learned a lot in the last 6 months or so.
Helps us to know what we want to put in there.
Yeah.
I think it's been really good information as far as where the weak points are and where we want to see it enhanced and where we're running into trouble. And so I think that if the decision is that that's the priority, our office has been slammed. Both with managing, that's about 6 active developments right now. One of the developers today was mentioning, hey, this is the end of the process for you, it's the beginning of the process for us. And we as staff are also part of a lot of that process. Not really as much as them, but there is still work that happens there afterwards. And so that plus the short-term rental stuff, we haven't had the ability to do any kind of ordinance work. I don't want to say this out loud, so I'm not going to, but maybe. I mean,
What do you like?
He's not enough wood to knock on. I think that you have been doing a lot of thinking about that as these ordinances have been going through already. So I think that could be relatively efficient in ordinance terms. And so what we've done in the past when we're looking at new ordinances is typically I'll bring you kind of a discussion initially, and here are a number of points to consider. And it's outside of the actual ordinance. I'll say, here are some of the things to talk about. And then you kind of decide, yes, no, we want to see this, we want to see that. And then the next month or 2 months or however long it takes, bring a draft and then look at that more closely. Now, the trick with that is not to get too hung up in every word. You can very easily spend a long time on the draft. So you want to make sure you get it right, but just keep in mind, you've got a lot of other stuff to do too. So then that draft would be revised. And so then that next month would be the final version, and then that would go to the board. So kind of minimum, you're looking at optimistically a 4-month process. It can go an awful lot longer than that, but that's right.
Okay.
Well, when you've got the bandwidth, obviously you and I talk frequently. I think to Char's point, that's gonna become a priority because we're just running into a lot of challenges with some of these developments. And unfortunately, we're asking for things that are in the ordinance, but we're also desiring other things depending on the development property.
Yeah.
So,
It's nice to see that the
Yeah.
builders are starting to listen and educate and then come prepared.
Yeah.
I just like to have the document.
Are there other
Completed.
three ordinances, like Haven or somewhere where you say they have a really good ordinance and we just kind of take that and then do you take here to 5 or 6 months? I mean, I'm trying to think.
Benchmark some benchmarks. Yep.
It's just that a little bit too.
Mhm.
So
That's kind of exciting, actually. I have been looking at some other places and other ordinances, and there's some good stuff out there. There's
Good.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'm trying to think if we could shorten our cycle time and the load that you have to put it
Yeah.
together.
An actual cut and paste is a little bit tricky just because every community is a little bit different. You guys are looking for something different than another community.
Yep.
But yes, we can definitely take
It's a starting
parts in
point.
there.
Yeah, well, I mean, to Stephanie's point, there's definitely a difference between Park Township and Holland Township right now.
Well, and I think Howard Township doesn't have the same, they have tree buffer requirements for their commercial properties, but I don't think they have that for residential, so they should have just a different vibe. Yeah.
Makes a difference.
Does.
Cool.
They've got some really nice, especially some of the newer ones that got some really nice road buffers. I think the city of Holland does as well, some of the newer places that got some nice stuff.
My
Yeah,
last,
the thing the thing that you really help with, because in some of the several reports, when they meet with you, you said, I know that these are the questions that Dan Bourbon's gonna ask, so you better cut together. So, but the thing is, you know us and the questions and you prepare them, and so you do a lot of work before. they
Yeah,
get there,
groundwork.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's helpful too, because that kind of goes both ways, because then, they might say, They know, and then they show up and you guys ask all the questions, and because I've been listening to you.
Yeah, you heard it, no more sycamores under the next sidewalks, taking all the sycamores away from something. They don't want to have to replace those. HOAs.
That's awesome. My last note here, I had, I'm looking forward to, hearing all about your PUD development course conference that you just attended, so.
One session, but it was.
I know, but it'll be good stuff. I'm done. Thank you.
All right,
We did not meet.
you did not meet, so there's no report for ZBAs. That was short. Thank you. Let's see, Wyoming Water Treatment Plant and Charter Township Master Plan. Whichever order you wanna.
Yep, that's just information. The Wyoming one in particular was just, hey, this is something that's going, we got to, it's not a process. The Helen Charter, master plan. I can try to talk to their planner, at this conference, he's there as well, and just see, to Corey, and see if there's anything, that we should be aware of, but that's just like, we did that process, they're doing that process again.
I build a pedestrian bridge over.
Probably not a pedestrian bridge, but.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I don't, and I guess there was a letter in there on farmland preservation from, I think it was a follow-up from the.
That sounded a little interesting.
Yeah,
It was a good, yeah.
it was a cool event. I wish we would have been able to go, whether as a group or individually. We were able to go last year. And it was really interesting, educational, and the food was great. So it was kind of a nice combination. Yeah, they're looking, in scanning through this, I mean, it looks like they're looking for everybody to have a supporting resolution. And do we don't at this point? We do.
We
Okay.
just, as of last year.
Oh, okay, cool. I couldn't remember if we had done that. I know we talked a lot about farmland preservation and we kind of started and we want to get back on that thing. Yeah, good. Well, at least I feel better about the resolution. Anything else anybody has? If not, I would be thrilled to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support. All in favor? Thanks, everybody.
Who supported that motion to, that plan? Glenn.